In today's tech world, if AI isn't on your skill set, you're already falling behind. Whether you are a developer, freelancer, or aspiring entrepreneur, AI is no longer optional. That's why today you're going to build a real-world, high-demand, practical, AI-powered application that summarizes PDF documents using ChatGPT. Let's kick things off with a quick demo so you can see exactly what you are building. From uploading documents to getting AI-generated summaries, all inside a sleek, responsive web application with authentication included. So the application starts here in this beautiful landing page that you can see here, the icon showing up, the title and some description, and also here a button. And if you click in this button, it's going to take you to a login page where you can continue with Google and choose an account that you want. So I'm going to select this account and I'm going to say continue. And once you finish the login, it's going to take you to the home page. And the cool thing about this homepage is that this is protected. That means that only the authenticated users can access this page. So for example, if I copy this URL and open this in another browser and try to go to the home page, you're going to see that this is going to take me back to the login page. And only once I finish the login is when I can go to the home page. Okay, so now here you see 4 pages. We have the quick upload page, we have the home page, we have the dashboard and my documents. Let's start with the quick upload page. In this page, what you can do is get a PDF document that you wish and just drag it, or if you want, select a file, and this is going to load it for you. And as it finishes loading, it's going to take you to this summary page where you can see the title and the document that you have uploaded, and in the right side you can see the summary. So let's take a quick look on how this summary process works. So first we have the PDF file that we uploaded, and then what we do, we upload this to the cloud. And once we upload this to the cloud, we get a file URL. And with this file URL, we use a third-party service to retrieve the text from this file URL. And with this text, we send this to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT creates a summary for us. And with this summary, we store this in the database. This is basically what we have here. So let's upload one more document. So I have this pitch document. I'm going to drop it right here, and this is going to load, and once again it's going to show me the document that I've uploaded, and on the right side it's going to show me the summary they've created. Pretty powerful, right? But we're just scratching the surface. If you want to turn this into a full SaaS product, I've created a premium version of this tutorial that shows you exactly how. In this extended version, you will learn how to implement user authentication with free and paid tiers. Let Pro users choose custom summaries length, questions and answering features so users can ask ChatGPT questions about their own PDFs. Build a favorite system for saving summaries. And finally, deploy everything to the web so you can start turning this into an actual revenue stream. As you acquire the premium version of the tutorial, you also get instant access to the full source code and join a private community where you can ask questions and get help directly, whether you are stuck or scaling. Oh, and for the first 30 people who sign up, there's a 20% discount. After that, the price goes up. So if you're serious about learning AI and building something that can actually make you money, now it's the time. Click the link below, grab your spot, and let's build this together. With that, are you ready? So without further ado, let's get straight to it. So to start with, choose a destination where you want to locate your project, and now open a terminal. And here we are going to make a new directory. So I'm going to use the make dir command, and we are going to name it Dockley. Alright, now you see the Dockley is created, and now I'm going to cd into the folder. So cd Dockley like this, and then I'm going to use code dot to open the project folder. Alright, so now as you can see, we have the project open in our Visual Studio Code, and the first thing that we can do is install Next.js, as this is the framework that we are going to use for this project. So I'm going to open the terminal using the Ctrl+J command, or if you prefer, you can go here and then say view and then on terminal right here. So the command I'm going to use is npx create next app, and I'm going to add a dot in the end just to make sure that this installs in the current project location. So I'm going to proceed, and it's asking us if you want to use TypeScript. We're going to say yes, ESLint, also Tailwind.css. I'm not going to use any src directory, but I'm going to use the app router, the turbo pack, and I also like to use the import alias, and there we go. Very nice. Now our installation is done. As you can see, we have some files in our root. We are going to use npm run dev to see it in our local machine. There we go. The only thing that you're going to see here is Next.js showing up with some text and some buttons. Okay, so if you want, we can go here to the page directory and we can remove everything that is inside. So this whole div right here I'm going to remove, and I'm going just to replace by a div saying hello world like this, and you should be seeing the hello world text right here. So the next library that we're going to use is ShadCN. If you don't know what ShadCN is, it's basically a library that provides us components, pre-built components that we can change later. So for example, if I want to build a button, I don't need to do this from scratch. The only thing that I need to do is import the button to our project and I can use it. And as you can see, it already has a lot of styles, so I'm not going to waste too much time with it. Okay, so to install ShadCN, we are going to head over to the installation part, and now as you can see, it's going to provide us the commands that we can use. So the command is npx ShadCN latest init. This basically is going to init the latest ShadCN package in our project, and now it's going to ask us some questions. So it doesn't really matter which base color we want to use. I'm going to say neutral, and now you can see that this is installing the dependencies, so we just need to wait. There we go. Now you can see that it's done creating all of the dependencies. It also said that it updated the CSS file and also created one file that is the utils. Okay, so if you go to globals, you can see that a lot of things changed. All right, so now that we have all of the dependencies installed that we need for now, we can go back to the page. All right, so now what you have to do is just restart your server, because we made some installations, and now we can go to the next part. All right, so the next step is going to the layout. Okay, layout is basically a container that's going to exist in all of our pages. So this is going to be the main layout, and the thing that we're going to do here is going to be pretty basic. We're just going to change here the title. So here I'm going to say Dockley, your AI powered document analyzer. Okay, so as you save this, you're going to see here the title changing. So as you refresh the page, you're going to see here the title changing to the actual content that we changed here, and now we don't need any description for now. All right, nice. So the job here on the layout for now it's done. We can go now to the page. All right, and for the page, we're going to separate the page into, in talking about pages, we are going to divide pages into sections. We're going to have the private and the public pages. The private pages are the ones that only the authenticated users can access, and the public pages are the ones that either the authenticated users and the not authenticated users can access. All right, so for better organization, I'm going to create here a new folder, and I'm going to use brackets. Okay, so it's going to be private and public. Okay, so as you know, Next.js uses pages naming or pages folder routing. Okay, that basically means that the routes or the tree that we have here on our folder directory is going to reflect to the route tree. Okay, so for example, if I have here a page of hello, and I actually create here a page inside, so say hello page, and then here I say hello, and then I head over to localhost/hello, as this is the name that I gave here. You're going to see that this is going to render hello, okay, because it's the content that I put here inside. But in this case, where we have, so as we have those parentheses on the name of the folder, this is not going to be treated as an actual page, but instead just a folder that is containing other folders inside. Okay, so this is just for organization purposes. Okay, so as we don't have authentication now or any type of authorization, we are going to start with the public folder, okay, where we're going to have our home page, and we can remove this hello. It's just for explanation, and I'm going to open here, and I'm going to go back to localhost 3000. Okay, so here in the public folder, I'm going to say page.tsx, okay, to actually create a page here. So this is going to be the home page, like so. So this is going just to be the home page of our app, and as the main focus of this video is not teaching you TypeScript, it's not teaching you how to build landing pages, I'm going to provide here in the project assets folder a file named page.tsx. Okay, you just have to open it, copy the content that is inside, and head over back to the page and just paste it down here. Okay, so as I said, this is just going to be a simple home page for the app. If you want to go more in details, you just have to read the code. There's not too much happening here, it's just some styling. All right, just don't waste our time. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh. So now as you paste the code right here, you're going to see that we are going to receive an error, which is cannot find module components UI button or its corresponding type declarations. Okay, so here we are importing a thing that doesn't exist. All right, do you remember the Chatcn library that I was talking about? Okay, so basically what we can do here is go to components and then head over to button, and here, as you can see, it's going to provide us this code that we can use to actually install the button to our project. Okay, so if you use npx, make sure that this is on npm. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to use npx Chatcn latest add button. Basically, if you go here and open the root or the project directory, you're going to see that it's going to create a components folder. There we go, a components folder with a button inside. Okay, that basically is going to solve us our error. All right, now that this error is solved, we can refresh the page. Now you're not going to see anything. Okay, and why is that? We have two pages that are pointing to the same route. Do you remember when I said that this brackets or this parentheses doesn't inflict in the routing of the page? Basically, we have two different pages that are pointing to the same route. Okay, so basically what we're going to do here is just remove this one, as Next.js is choosing this one to render. And now that we remove this, the other one, now Next.js is going to render this one, right? And as you refresh the page, you are going to see here this beautiful home page that we created. The only thing that is missing here is the logo. Okay, and for the logo, you just gotta access the project assets folder again, and you're going to find this public folder right here, which is going to contain our logo image. So talking about the logo, this is the logo that I found it on Drizzle.com. This is the creator, so just here leaving the credits. All right, so this is the logo that we're going to use, and now here inside this public folder, we just need to copy it and paste here on the root of our folder. And now we just gotta review in File Explorer and just remove this public that we have in our project and copy this public that I provided, and there we go. Okay, nice. So now let me go back to the project and refresh it, and hopefully you can see here the logo showing up. So with this, we basically finished the home page. Okay, so now we are going to start doing the actual authentication. And for this, I'm going to use a library named Clerk.com. It's basically the best library that you can use for authentication in the market. Alright, so you can click here on Start Building for free, and then you're going to head over here where it says, or it gives you the command to install the Clerk library. And there we go. So now the next step is creating the middleware. Okay, so here I'm going to go to the root of our project, and here I'm going to create a new file which is going to be middleware.ts. and you might be thinking what middleware is. Okay, basically what middleware is basically is something that runs between the server and the client. Okay, so let's say they are making a page request. We are going to try to access a page. All right, so after the server loads the thing that wants to give us, is going to load the middleware before actually giving us the result. All right, so you're going to understand later how that works. Okay, so I just created here a basic middleware so you can understand how it works. Basically, as I said, between every request that we make, the middleware is going to run. Even if it is pages, images, doesn't matter. Always this middleware is going to run. Okay, so if I refresh here the page, you're going to see that we're going to get a lot of hellos here in the terminal. This is because I used the console log hello just to show that running. Okay, so this is actually pages and images and everything that is loading. So this is basically pages and images that are loading, and before they actually get returned to the client, we run the middleware. But we are not going to use this middleware just to say hello to the terminal. We're going to use this middleware to control our auth flow. And for this, you can go here to the middleware.ts that this is providing us. You can see how this is going to work. All right, so this is basically, we are going to export the default Clerk middleware. This is going to do the authentication for us, and it's going to have here a matcher. Okay, this doesn't actually apply to exactly what we want to do in our project. So again here on the project assets, you're going to find this middleware.ts. Okay, so you can copy everything and just paste it here on the middleware. So I'm going over what this is going to do. Okay, so what this is going to do, basically, we are going to export the Clerk middleware, and this is basically going to check if we are trying to access a private route, and if we are and we are not authenticated, then we are going just to protect this page, making the user not being able to access. Okay, so this is actually the public routes that we have for our project. Okay, so this is the home page, the one that we are doing right now, and the others ones, then the others that we are going to create in a minute, and also the API, which is going to be always public. Okay, and just down here you're going to find this config. So as I said, the middleware is going to run between every request that we make in this page, even if it is for images, CSS files, JavaScript files, or anything else. Okay, so what this matcher is basically doing is saying to Next.js hey, you don't need to run for actually everything that we have in this project. Okay, just run for the actual pages. So this is basically removing those type of files on the calls. All right, so for better understanding how the outflows is going to work, so I created here another diagram so you can hopefully understand it better. Okay, so let's say that we're trying to access a private page. Okay, before we go to the actual page, this is going to run this middleware. Okay, this middleware from Clerk, and this middleware is going to have only one job: to check if we are auth or not. Okay, if we are auth and we're trying to access a private page that is only for auth users, then we can go. But if we're trying to access a private page and we are not auth, then we are going to be redirected to the login page, right? This is basically what all of this is doing. Okay, so there's some other things that we still need to work, which is here the provider. Okay, so provider is actually, think this as a big object that's going to provide us information about the authentication of the user. So it's going to give us information if the user is authenticated or not. All right, so we are going just to go here on the top of our fold, the top of our layout, and import a Clerk provider. Right, it's coming from Next.js, and we are going to put here on the start of our whole project. So Clerk provider, and we just need to surround this inside of this provider. So again, this basically is just going to give us information about the user that is authenticated. All right, so now where we are actually going to make the login. All right, so here on the app and inside of public, I'm going to create a new folder which is going to be get started. Okay, this is going to be the folder that is going to be responsible to handle the login and the registers. Okay, so here on the get started, I'm going to create a new folder which is going to have 2 open brackets and 3 dots. Make sure you put 3 dots here. So yeah, so here we're going to use 3 dots and then rest, and close it with 2 brackets again. Okay, so inside of this rest, we're going to have the page .tsx like this, and inside of this page we are going to build the authentication flow. Okay, so again, ChatGPT is going to provide us the components, so we don't have to worry about styling and any other logic. Okay, so we're going to start by exporting a default function which is going to be named get started page. Nice. And we're just going to return here a div with width of full, height of screen, and flex of justify center and items center. Okay, so see how easy it is to just create a login form. Okay, so here we're just going to import the sign in component from Clerk, and it's all it takes. All right, so basically if you go to localhost 3000/get started, you are going to find here this beautiful login form, okay, where you can authenticate with Google. But we are going to get in there in a minute. We still have some things to do before that. Okay, so here inside of private, I'm going to create a new folder which is going to be home, and then I'm going to create here a page.tsx and then rfc, and then here I can say home page. And for the content, for now, just going to say this is a private page. Okay, so this is going to be the actual private page that our application is going to run. Again, this private page can only be accessed. So again, this private page can only be accessed by authenticated users. Okay, so let's see what happens if we try to access this page as we are not authenticated. Okay, so let me try to go to localhost 3000 and then home. What is going to happen is this thing that I showed right here. So we're going to try to access the private page, but before this is going to run the middleware, and the middleware is going to tell us if we're authenticated or not. As we're not authenticated, this is going to redirect us to the login page. Okay, let's see that happen again. It's going to be very, very fast. So as I try to go to the home page, you are going to be redirected to a login form. Okay, and when you click here on continue with Google, you can choose an account that you want, and let me say continue, and actually verify that I'm a human being, you are going to be redirected to the localhost 3000/home, which is a private page, and as we are authenticated now, we can access it. Okay, so now you see that we have this little message showing in the bottom of our page, which is saying Clerk is in a keyless mode. That basically means that we still need to claim our application. So just click here, and this is going to open this, and you just need to create an account if you don't have one. In my case, I already have, and it's going to ask for your application name. I'm going to say Dockley and claim application, and this is going to give you some environment variables. Okay, so I'm just going to copy it real quick, and here I'm going to say .env is where I'm going to store these environment variables. So if you don't know what environment variable is basically a variables that you don't want to expose for the public. Okay, it's going to be something like a secret variables that you only want to hold for your application. So now it basically gave us a Clerk secret key and a Clerk publishable key. All right, that basically is going to say, if you go here to go to dashboard, if you go to here to the dashboard, it's basically saying that this is application that is right here is only for us, nobody else can use it. Okay, so here you can see in your dashboard, you can see the latest signups that you had. So this is the account that I used to sign in. As you can see, you can have a lot of information right here, which is really cool. There is two more environment variables that we need to store, which is the next public Clerk sign up fall back redirect URL. Make sure you spell that right. So next public Clerk sign up fallback redirect URL is going to be home, and for the other one we just need to copy and paste it. It's going to be sign in. So you just need to change up to in, and there we go. So basically this is saying to every time that we sign up or sign in, we're going to be redirected to the home page. Okay, now that we have the authentication done, we can actually make the private page that we are talking. So now that authentication flow is done, we can finally move to the actual private page, which is going to be the actual application. All right, so let me go here on private. Okay, so we are going to start by the layout. All right, so we're going to start by doing the layout of the home page. Okay, so here I'm going to just create a layout.tsx inside of home. Make sure you put that inside of home, and then I'm going to create a rfc command. So it's going to be layout like this, and basically this is going just to accept a children, and it's going to return the children right inside. Of course you have to type this, so children is going just to be a React element, so we just say React node. So our application is going to include a sidebar. We are going to use the ChatGPT component named sidebar to create a sidebar for our homepage, and for this we need to install it. Okay, so I'm going to use npx ChatGPT latest add sidebar. So we just make sure you add this command into your terminal. So it's going to be npx ChatGPT latest add sidebar, like so. Nice. And now we can go back to our home page. Nice. So now if you go to your components, you're going to see that a lot of things were added right here on the UI components folder, and we're going to use it later. But for now, what we need to import is sidebar inset from components UI sidebar, and also the sidebar provider. All right, so basically we're going to put the sidebar provider right here, and Then we are going to surround the sidebar with the sidebar inset. We're going to surround the children. All right, so again, a provider basically is a component or is an object that gives us information about something. In this case, this is going to give us information about the sidebar. Okay, and the sidebar inset is actually going to be the content. All right, so we're going to have our whole sidebar. All right, so think this as a whole thing of sidebar, and then we're going to have the sidebar itself that we're going to build it later. We are going to build it right here, and then we're going to have the sidebar inset, which is going to have the content. All right, so the actual sidebar, we are going to build it ourselves. So here we're going to say app sidebar .tsx, right? So app sidebar, and you can put it right here. So it's going to be app sidebar. Nice. And all right, so in the project assets folder, you're going to find the sidebar data, which is basically going to be the links for our sidebar. Okay, so just copy that and go back here to the component that we are building. Okay, and for now we can open this all the way, and you can paste it right here. You're going to see a lot of errors, but we're going to fix them. Okay, so basically those are just icons. So we're going to import the home icon, the layout dashboard icon, the bookmark icon, the settings icon, the app circle icon, and the search icon. All right, so all of the errors went away, and now we can continue creating the sidebar. All right, so now here we just have to receive some props. So we're going to get all of the props, and now we just need to type them. So it's going to be component props of type of sidebar. All right, and here we're going to return a sidebar. Okay, like this. We're going to say that this is going to be, make sure that the sidebar that you're importing is not from Lucid React, but instead from the actual components that we have here. And here we just need to say that this is going to be collapsible of canvas, and then here we just need to spread all of the props. All right, so now as you can see in this image, the sidebar can be divided in 3 different parts, which is the sidebar itself, the sidebar header, then we are going to have the sidebar content, and then the sidebar footer. All right, so we're going to start by doing the sidebar header, which is going to have some basic information like the name of the application and so here's going to be sidebar header. All right, and then we are going to have the sidebar menu, and inside of the sidebar menu we're going to have the sidebar menu item. All right, and inside of the sidebar menu item we're going to have the sidebar menu button, like this. And here we just need to say as child and class name data slot sidebar menu button. Okay, and exclamation mark p 1.5. So this is just for some class names that helps ChatGPT apply the styles better. And now inside of sidebar menu button, we're going to have a div, and inside of this div we're going to have an image from next image, and this is going to have the source of /logo.png and width of 30 and height of 30, out of docly, and class name of object contain. So here we have a source, which is basically saying that we're going to find the image on the public folder. As you can see, public, we're going to have the logo.png, and then here we're setting the width and the height, which is going to be 30. Out, this is basically a description of the image, and then class name of object contain, which is basically going to contain the image ratio with the size that it's available. Okay, so below the image we're going to have a span saying Dockley, which is the name of our app, and then we're going to add some class name of text base and font of bold. All right, so with this our header, it's done, as you can see, and we can even see here the sidebar showing up. It's really cool. And now we can move to the next part, which is the sidebar content. All right, so here below the header we're going to create sidebar content, and here we're going to have the nav main, which is going to be the main nav. All right, which is a component that we're going to do in a minute. Okay, so here we just need to create a new component, which is going to be nav main.tsx. Nice. And here's going to be nav main, and we just need to import it. All right, so now moving to the nav main. This is basically going to include all of the main links for our application. Okay, so here we're going to receive the items, so called the links, and now going to type them. So basically items is going to be an object, an array of objects, and each item is going to include a title, which is going to be a string, also an URL, which is also going to be a string, an icon, which is going to be a lucid icon, is the library that we're using for icons, and that's it for the typings. Okay, so now you just need to say sidebar group. Okay, so remember we are doing this part. Okay, so we are creating a group inside of the sidebar content, so we're going to create a sidebar group, and now we're going to have the sidebar group content like so, and this content is going to have a class name of flex column and gap of 2. This is basically going to align everything in the column, and it's going to have some space between the elements. And then inside of the sidebar group content we're going to have the sidebar menu like this, and inside of the sidebar menu we're going to have the sidebar menu item like this, and this sidebar menu item is going to have a class name of flex items center and gap of 2. Okay, and inside of the sidebar menu item we're going to have the link, which is going to be a next link, and it's going to have a class name of width of full. And so I just opened here the build version of the application so you can see what we're doing. So what we're doing right now is this quick upload button that you can see here in blue. Okay, so let's go back to our application, and here we have the link, and the href is going to be home/quick upload. All right, we're going to create this page later, but for now we're just going to leave like this. And this link, and inside of this link we're going to have the sidebar menu button. All right, and it's going to have a tooltip which is going to say quick create. All right, you're going to see the button in a minute. And then we're going to have a huge class name, which is going to be min width of 8, which is setting that it has to be at least 8 of width. And then bg primary, the primary color of our application, text primary foreground. Okay, so this is for coloring, and duration of 200. This is for the animation. And then we are going to say top. So here we're going to just say how the animation is going to work, so in a linear ease. And here we're going to say on the hover, so when we hover on the button, the text is going to turn from primary foreground that we had here to, and then here on the hover we're going to say bg primary 90, Basically, so here basically we are saying that every time that we put our mouse over the button is going to have some opacity on the background, right? And we are going to change the app colors later, but for now I'm going to leave like this. And we're also going to have the plus circle icon. All right, nice. And then we're going to have a span here of quick upload. So as you can see, the colors are now matching in the applications. This is because our global CSS has different values. Okay, so head over to your global.css, okay, and now go to the project assets folder that I provided and open it and copy the content that is inside and just paste it right here. Okay, make sure that you save the file, and once you come back, you're going to see the change. All right, so we still need to do some other styling right here on the nav main. Okay, so here we just need to say hover text primary foreground. Okay, so with this we finish the styling to this button, and now we can move to the next part, which is the actual links. Okay, so below the sidebar menu we're going to create a new sidebar menu. All right, but now this is going to render the items. Okay, so we're going to say items.map and then item, and we are going to render each item right here, and we're going to receive an error because we are not passing any items right here. So here we just need to pass the items. So items is going to be the data.nav main. All right, make sure you do that. So here, as we pass the items, now we can show them. So we're going to say here link. So we're going to use the link from Next.js, and the href is going to be the item.url, and then we need to pass a unique key, which is going to be item.title, and then the class name is going to be cursor pointer. Nice. So inside of this link we're going to have the sidebar menu item. All right, and the class name of this is going to be cn. Okay, so this is just a helper function to help us combine class names. Okay, so basically what we're going to do here is to check if we are in a specific page, then this is going to show us an indicator that we are in this page. So for example, we are in the home page, and you can see that the home page has a little background behind. And if we go to the dashboard page, so if we go to the dashboard page, you're going to see that we have a background on the dashboard page. So this is what we're going to do. Okay, so we're going just to check if the path that we are, the path of the link is the same as the path that we are. Okay, so for this we need to call a hook named use path name, which is going to give us this information. So it's going to give us the path that we are in. Okay, so here we just need to say item.url is equal to path name. Okay, so if it's equal to path name, that means that we are on the same page. So the page of the link is the same page as we're in. And then if that happens, then we can say bg primary /20 for 20 of opacity, and then rounded medium and text black. Otherwise, don't apply any additional styles. Okay, so it's going to be for it. And then if you do this, you're going to give us an error because we are using a hook inside of a server component. And to turn this into a client component, we just need to say here use client. The difference between client and server component is that the server component is created on the server and cannot access JavaScript. It cannot access React hooks and neither events from the DOM, and the client components can access it. So in this case we are using a hook, and we need to use client flag right here to transform this into a use client component. Right, so let me just refresh so we can see what we are doing. So here our Next.js is tweaking a little bit. Let me just restart the server to see if that solves the problem. So I'm just going to say npm run dev again and see if this is going to solve the error that's given us. If you're receiving the same error, just do the same. Reload the server and see if that is going to solve the error. And it didn't, so it must be something that we have here in our app. Let me just see what it is. Oh, so it's here on the file where we are not importing the icon. So make sure you import the icon here on the file, because this is looking for the object or the class of file, which we don't want. Make sure you import the actual icon. All right, so now let's go back to the nav main and everything should be fixed. No, it is not, so we must have something else here. So again, I'm going to restart the server again to see if that solves the problem, and it didn't. So let me see what it is again. Oh, okay, so here on the top, just make sure you transform this into a use client component, just because we are using things here that needs to be in the client environment. All right, so doing this, everything should be all right, so we can continue creating the navbar. All right, so here where we left off, where we are making the checks, we can go inside of the actual component, and inside of here we're going to say sidebar menu button. Okay, make sure you import this from here. Okay, so side menu button, and then this is going to have a tooltip. So instead of side menu item, we're going to use the sidebar menu button. All right, which is going to only have a tooltip with the item.title, and inside of the button we're going to have a check to see if we have an icon. Then we are going to render this specific icon. Okay, so I just say item.icon, just like so, to render the icon, and below it we're going to have a span showing the item.title. Okay, so as you can see, as we are on the home page, it shows the thing behind, the background behind. If we change to the dashboard page, then it will change to dashboard. All right, so for now it's going to be it for this component. We are not going to move through those different pages because they are not created yet. We're going to create it later. And now we can move to this section. And now we can move to this section where we are going to create these three links right here, and then the authenticated user information. All right, so go back to the app sidebar, and here we're going to have a new component, which is going to be nav secondary. All right, and again we're going to pass the items. It's going to be the data.nav secondary. All right, and the class name is going to be margin top of auto, which is basically saying to stick to the lowest as you can. All right, so now we are going to, instead of UI, we are going to create the nav secondary.css component. So let me do it real quick. And here we're going to receive the items. All right, and then we're going to get all of the props. So these three dots means the rest of the props that we pass. And here we just need to type the actual props that we're going to receive. So it's going to be items. We're going to receive the items, which we're going, inside of an item is going to have a title, which is going to be a string, a URL, which is also going to be a string, and an icon, which is going to be a lucid icon. And this is actually going to be an array of objects. Okay, and for the rest of the props, basically is going to be a React component without ref. Okay, and then here we just need to say type of sidebar group. All right, so here we need to say sidebar group, and then inside the sidebar group we're going to say sidebar group content. Nice. And inside of sidebar group content we're going to say sidebar menu, and inside of sidebar menu then we can list the items. Okay, so items.map item. For each item we're going to render a sidebar menu item like so, which is going to have a key of item.title. Okay, so now we need to say sidebar menu button, and here you just need to say as child, and then inside of here we're going to have a href, a link, with a href linking to the item.url. Okay, that for now is not going to be our real page. And then we just need to render the icons, so icon like this, and the span with the item.title. Easy as that. And don't forget to put here the use client, as we are going to need it, and also here the props for the sidebar group component. And now let's go back to the app sidebar and import here the component that we just made, and now you can see here the link showing up down here. All right, so now that we have those links, we can move to the next part, which is making the nav bar or the nav user, where we can see the information about the user that is authenticated. Okay, so here below the content we're going to have the sidebar footer. Okay, and we're going to create it real quick. So it's going to be nav user.tsx like this, and let me use the rfc command, so nav user. If you don't have this command, so rfc, that probably means that you don't have an extension installed, which is ES7 React Redux Graph blah 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 installed. So make sure you install it to have these shortcuts that I have. All right, okay, so this is going to be a client component, so it's going to be rendered, or it's going to be loaded on the client. And to get the information about the authenticated user, we need to know which user is authenticated, right? So for this, I'm going to create a new folder right here named services, and inside of this folder that I just created, so services, we are going to have a new folder named auth, and this auth is going to include a file named server.ts. Okay, so basically we're just going to export an async function named get auth user, okay, to know which user is authenticated. And for authentication, if you remember, we are using Clerk. Okay, so let me say here const Clerk user is equal to await a current user. So this basically gave us the user that is authenticated, and if you are not authenticated, then we're just going to return no. But if we are, then we're going to return an object with an image URL, which is going to be basically the Clerk user.image URL, and also the name, so it's going to be Clerk user.fullname. Also we're going to have the email, which is going to be Clerk user.email addresses, because a user can have multiple email addresses, and we're going to get the first one, and then the ID, which is going to be just Clerk user.id. All right, so here on the name it can either be string or null, so it means that basically sometimes we're not going to have a full name, so we can say, for example, no, an unknown user. All right, just don't leave it blank. Okay, so now instead of auth, we're going to create the index.ts, and here we're going to create an object named auth, which is going to contain the get auth user function that we just created, and then we can export this auth object. All right, so now we can close this. We are not going to do any modifications to this file no more, and we can go back to the nav user component. Okay, so to actually fetch the data, since we are not in a server component, if we were in a server component, all that we had needed to do is do a sync. Okay, so transform this into a sync component, and then say, for example, auth user is going to be equal to await of dot get auth user, like this, and we would receive the auth user right here. So then if I try to console log it, we can name it user. Let me just import this nav user component so we can see in action inside of here. So if we do that, we are going to receive an error because this function is a server component. So basically, because we cannot use a sync in a client component. All right, so what we have to do is fetch this on the client. And as you know, to fetch things on the client, we have to create here state. You don't need to do that, but I'm going to show you. You create here state, and then you create the use state here. Then you have to create the use effect, and inside of the use effect, you would call the function to get authenticated. As you know, it would be a lot of code, so it would be something like that. Okay, so this is a lot of code, and we would also need to track if it's loading or not. So it's a lot of work that we need to do. Okay, so to solve this problem, we can use a library from Next.js, which is SWR, which basically allows us to eliminate the boilerplate or the chunk of code from this. Okay, to fetch something to this. It's just one line of code. All right, so you can click here on get started, and then head over here to npm, and we need to install this library. So it's going to be npm iswr. Okay, you're going to see how easy it is to implement it, and now we can use it. Okay, so here we are going to initialize it. So we're going to say use swr. Okay, and then here we need to say the key, so the key that we want to fetch. So API/auth. So we need this key, so every time that we fetch in another component to the same key, we don't need to refetch again, which is going to get the data from the cache. Okay, so and then here we're going to say auth.get auth user, so the actual function that we want to call. So this is going to return us the data, is also going to return us the error and the is loading, and also a mutate function, which is really cool. But for now, the only thing that we're going to use is the user. Okay, so we're using this just to rename the variable. Okay, so now we have here the user, and the first thing that we need to do is check if we don't have an user, then we're going to return. Okay, simple as that. And then here we're going to have the sidebar menu. So we're going to start by creating the actual layout. So sidebar menu, and instead of sidebar menu, we're going to have the sidebar menu item, and then we're going to have a drop down, which is not installed yet. So again, we need to install it from chatcn. Okay, so I'm going to install it real quick. So npm install drop down menu. So I'm going to just install it real quick. So it's going to be npx chatcn latest add drop down. All right, it's installed. Now we can go back to the styling. Okay, so it's going to be drop down menu. Okay, just import it. Make sure you import from the components and not from Radix. And then it's going to be drop down menu. Instead of drop down menu, we're going to have the drop down menu trigger. Okay, again inside of components, and then transform this into a child, and then sidebar menu button. Okay, so we're going to set size as large, so it's going to be a large button, and the class name, and inside of here we're going to have the avatar. Okay, so again another component that we need to install, so it's going to be npx chassis and latest add avatar. There we go, and we just need to import it. Nice. So inside of avatar we're going to have the avatar image. So the avatar image is going to be the image of the authenticated user. Okay, so avatar image is going to be a self-closing component, and the source is going to be user.image.url, and the out or the description about the image is going to be user.name. All right, so hopefully we can see something. So one thing here, instead of get auth user, so in this function we just need to say here use server. Okay, so basically we are saying that this function is going to run on the server. All right, so now we can close this, and as you can see, let me just move this to the top right side or even hide it, and now you can see here the authenticated user icon. Okay, so I'm going to do some styling. So I'm going to say here class name, height of 8 and width of 8, and then rounded large, and nice. And below the avatar I'm going to have div, which is going to be of class name grid flex 1, text left, text small, and leading tight, like this. Also want to include the span of user dot name, which is going to have a class name of truncate font medium. And below the span we're going to have another one, but instead of showing the name, it's going to show the email. It's going to have text of extra small and text muted foreground. All right, so now let's go back, and this is what you should be seeing. Really nice. So I'm just going to format the document real quick and move to the next part, which is this thing that you're going to see here. So when we click here, you're going to see more information, so we can log out and do other stuff. Okay, so below here the trigger, we're going to have the drop down menu content, okay, which is going to have a class name of width of slash is going to have width of radix drop down menu trigger width. Okay, so basically we're going to get the variable value, okay, to set for the width, and then the mean width. So the minimum width is going to be 56, which basically it is 224 pixels. And finally I'm going to round the corners using the rounded large. Okay, all right, so below the class name we're going to have the align end, and then sidebar or side offset of 4. All right, so now inside of the drop down menu content, let me just open it, and we have the drop down menu label. Okay, make sure you import this from the components, and the class name is going to be p of 0, so it's not going to have any space outside of the container, and then font normal, and Also going to include a div of class name flex item center, gap of 2, px of 1, py of 1.5, text left and text small. Okay, and then we just need to grab this thing that it's here, so the avatar, the whole avatar, and the div behind below it, and paste it down here. All right, okay, so now let me just format the document real quick. So below this div, we're going to have, below this drop down menu label, we're going to have the drop down menu separator, which is going to just be a line separating the things, and we're going to have the drop down menu item like this. That for now we're going to leave like this, and when you click on the avatar, you're going to see this, okay, showing up. And the only thing that we need to do here now is the logout button. All right, so inside the drop down menu item, we are going to have logout, and here just going to say log out, and when we click on this menu item, we are going to call the sign out function from Clerk to sign out the user. All right, so it's going to be const sign out. We're going to use Clerk, so this is a hook which is going to return this sign out function, and here we're just going to call it. And as we sign out, we can pass here a redirect URL. So as we sign out, we're going to be redirected to / which is going to be just the actual home page, so it's going to be localhost, right? So we can try it right now. So when I click here on logout, so you're going to be redirected to the home page. Okay, so let me try to sign in again. So let me choose an account. There we go, I am signed in, and if I want, I can log out, and now I'm going to be redirected to the home page. Really nice. All right, now that we have the authentication and the sidebar done, what we can do now is the quick upload page. So here, when we click on quick upload, we are going to be redirected to this page, which doesn't exist yet. So we are going to create it now. So here on private, inside of home, we're going to create a new folder that is going to be named quick upload like this, and inside of this folder we are going to have a page.tsx file. Okay, so we're going to initialize it. So I'm going to name this page quick upload page, just like this, and let's just start building. So alright, so as you can see, the quick upload page just contains a component which allows us to upload files. Alright, so this is what we are going to do. So basically, this page basically consists into a component, and the name of this component, we are going to create it right now. So I want to create here components, and I like to put here underscore before everything that is not pages, just to help me differentiate between the pages and what are not pages. So just put an underscore and then components inside of home, and inside of here we're going to create a new folder which is going to be quick upload, and inside of here we're going to have the index.ts that basically is going to be the component to make the quick upload. Okay, so this is going to be tsx, my bad, it's not ts, and then we are going just to import this quick upload component inside of the quick upload page. All right, nice. So now all we gotta do is make the quick upload component itself, right? So here we're going to start with the container div by adding here a class name of space y of 6, and then we're going to make a h1 saying quick upload. Okay, so you can have an idea what we are doing is this H1, and then we're going to move to the actual droppable area. So here we're going to say quick upload, but we're going to add some class names. Okay, and this is going to be dynamic class names. So here is going to be text to Excel to expand or to make the text bigger, font bold, and then we are going to use a font from Google. All right, so to use this font, all we gotta do is first import it, of course. So we're going to import the font that we want. In this case is Simonetta. I don't know how to pronounce this, but I think it's like this. And then we just have to initiate this font right here. So it's going to be Simonetta, and this is going to be equal to Simonetta, like this. And then we're going to say the subsets. Basically, it's just going to be for Latin. This is going to be the language that we're going to use in this website. And then weight, not language, but the char set. I think that's how you say it. And then for the weight, I'm going to say 400. That's going to be the default weight. All right. So how do we use this font? Basically, we go here where we want to use the font, and then we say Simonetta dot class name. All right. So with this, we should see here a different font, and that's what is happening. So nice, very, very good. All right. So below this H1 that we just created, we're going to create here a div, and this div is going to be the one that's going to have these borders in the container. Okay, so we can start by saying class name, and in the future this is going to be dynamic, so we can say by class name and CN. And remember, this CN is used when we want to combine class names, but for now we're just going to say relative width of full, age of 400 pixels, border of 2 to define the border weight, and then border dashed. That is going to make the dash thing that we want. So border dash, there we go. And then rounded to round the corners a little bit. Transition colors, and duration 300. This is basically when we hover. So when we hover a document into the draggable area, so let's say this document right here, so when we drop it, this is going to make this animation. All right, so we're going to get that, so we're going to go over that later, but for now let's just keep on doing the rest. All right, so here inside of this div we're going to have another div, and this one is going to have a class name of absolute inset 0 flex column gap of 2 justify center items center and pointers events none. So basically we are with this absolute inset 0, we are taking the whole space that this outer div provides, and then with the flex column we're basically saying to the elements be in a column position or in the column flow, and then we're just spacing a little bit the elements and putting them on the center of the container. All right, so as you can see here we have a little icon of a file right here. So for this we are going to say here file, and we are going to import this icon from Lucid React. And for the class names, again, this is going to have some dynamic class names, so we're going to use CN like this, and we're going to say transition transform, just because this is going to have some animations later, but for now we're going to leave like this. Okay, and then below this file we're also going to have a span, and this span is going to say for now it's just going to say drop a file. Okay, just for now. Later we're going to have some other dynamic content, and for the class name it's just going to be font semi-bold and text to Excel. All right, below this pen we're going to add a button. Nice, and this button is just going to say disabled, and this button is just going to say or select a file. Okay, and for the class name we're just going to say pointer events auto. All right, and below of this button we're just going to have an input. All right, and this input has a ref of file input ref. I'm going to explain what this is in a minute. So file input ref, the type is going to be a file, and it is going to accept PDF files. Okay, so just put a .pdf just to only accept PDF files in the system. And then we can say class name hidden. Exactly, this is just to hide the input. We're not going to be able to see it. And for now it's just going to be it. You're not going to be able to see anything in the page because we have this error for the file name for the file input ref. Okay, so what is a ref? Ref is basically a reference to an element. Okay, so here we're going to say const file input ref, right? It's going to be a use ref. And why we want to use a ref? We want to use a ref so we can know which file was uploaded. All right, so we're going to get a reference to this input of type file, and when we upload the file we can know which file was uploaded based on the reference. Okay, and as you know, we are using here a hook, and every time that we use a hook we have to be in a client component. So here we're just going to say use client on the top to transform this into a client component, and let's just keep and let's just finish initializing this variable. So this is going to be a use ref, as I said, and it's going to be HTML input element. Okay, and it's going to start as new. All right, so now let's refresh the page and hopefully we can see what we have done. I just made a typo here. It's not cleanet, it's client, so make sure you spell that right. And now let me refresh the page and hopefully I can see what the changes. Okay, so now you can see here the quick upload component, but every time that I drag a file you see that nothing happens. Okay, so I drag a file, nothing happens. This is the file that we're going to summarize in a minute, but nothing happens. Okay, so here we have to make some hooks. So here we have to make some events. Okay, so here in this div that has the class name, we are going to go below it, and there's some events that we need to handle. Okay, so the events are on drag over, on drag enter, on drag leave, and on drop. Okay, so we need those events to know when we are dropping a file. Okay, if you're not familiar with this, I'm going to explain you in a minute. I just created here I just added here a console log to call every time that one of these events happens. Okay, so let's say that I want to grab this file, right? So I'm grabbing it, and you see that the first event that was called is drag leave. This event is called every time that the file is outside of the drag container. Okay, so once I enter, you see it calls the drag enter. Okay, and as I'm with the file inside of the container, it keeps calling the drag over. Okay, when I leave, it says drag leave. When I enter, it says drag enter, and then keeps calling the drag over. And once I drop this file, we're going to see the drop console log. All right, so this is basically how that works. Instead of logging, we are going to call functions that is going to handle those events for us. All right, so the first function that we're going to create is the drag over. Okay, so when we click here, we want to call the handle drag over function. Okay, and this function is going to be fairly easy, so let me just initialize it. So it's going to be handle drag over, that basically is going to receive an event which is of type React drag event, and is going to prevent default. So it's going to prevent the default behavior of the page, which is making a request, which we don't want, and e.stop propagation, so that basically stop the propagations from the dragging. Okay, and we want to show an indicator to show us when we are dragging or not a file. Okay, so for this I want to create here a state which is going to be is dragging and set is dragging. Okay, as the name says, it's going to control if we are either dragging or not, and it's going to start as false. Okay, so if we are not dragging, then we are going to set is dragging as true. All right, simple as that. And if we have one to set the is dragging to true, we should also have one to set the is dragging to false, which is going to be on drag leave. Okay, so here we're going to create another function which is going to be handle drag leave, that basically is going to be called every time that we leave the dragging area. Okay, it's going to be fairly the same thing, but here basically we're just going to set is dragging to false to show that we are not dragging anymore. All right, so now here I'm just going to embed this function to the event. So it's going to be handle, I just made a typo here, it's going to be handle drag leave, exactly, so handle drag leave. Right, so now we have an indicator to show when we are dragging or not, and I'm going to already start using it. Okay, so the first place where we can use is here. So if we are dragging, then we're going to set a border of primary and animate pulse. We're going to see how the animation looks in a minute. Nice. And also here on the file where I said this is going to be dynamic, so here if is dragging, then we are going to say text primary and scale of 1 to 5. There you go. Either or, which is going to be empty, so we're not going to add any additional styles if we are not dragging. And finally, it's right here. So here I'm going to say if we are dragging, then we are going to say drop it now, and if we are not, then I'm going to say drop a file. All right, so now you're going to see it's going to say drop a file because we're not dragging anything, but as soon as I drag a file on it, you're going to see the animation showing up. The first thing that you're going to see is the border is going to turn into a different color, and it's going to also include the animation of pulsing. All right, so still when we drop a file on this area, nothing happens. Okay, this is because we haven't made yet the functionality to drop the file. Okay, so here we're just going to call the handle drag over as is this the same thing as the on drag enter. Okay, and the only function that left us to do is the on drop. Okay, so here I'm just going to create the const handle drop function like this, and I'm going to call it on the event. Nice. And all right, so there's two different ways of so basically there's different ways to upload a file here in our system. There's one of dropping the file into this area, and the other one, which we haven't made yet, of selecting the file and open the computer file explorer. Okay, so we are almost done with the dropping area functionality, but I'm just going to finish first the input way of dropping the files. So we remember we created this input ref, right? So this is hidden, that's why we cannot see it. If I remove this hidden class name, you're going to see here the input, but as you can see, this input is very ugly. That's why I say hey, hidden, so it's going to be invisible. So the only place that I want to, so the only way that I want to show the file explorer is via this button right here. Okay, so if we don't have the actual input, how are we going to do that? So basically here, when we click on the button, what we're going to do is use the file input ref.current, and we are going to click it. So basically this input ref is reference to this input, and we are going to click every time that we click on this button. So this is basically how this is going to work. So now when I click on here, you're going to see that it actually opens, here the file explorer. All right, okay. And what happens when I select a file? So here I'm going to say on change. So when we select a file, it's going to call the handle file change function, right? And I'm going to create it right here. So handle file change. There we go. And nice. All right. So let's start with the handle drop first. Okay. So when we drop a file, what is going to happen? So first I'm going to create here a state that's going to be is loading, and as you may know, is going to track if you are either loading or not. So a set is loading, and then it's going to be a use state that's going to start as false. Okay, so if we are dropping a file and we already have a file that was dropped before, and that means that we cannot drop two files at the same time. So if it's loading, so that means if we have a process happening behind the scenes, then we're just going to return. So basically means that we're not going to do anything. But if not, we're going to say e, and we forgot to add here the event. So we have an event here, and it's going to say the event is going to be of type React drag event. So basically we are going to prevent default. It's the same thing that we did here, and also prevent the propagation. So stop propagation, and then we can set is dragging to false. So if we already dropped a file, that means that we are no longer dragging a file, right? Okay, and then how do we actually get the file that we are dropping? Okay, so basically it returns a thing called e.datatransfer.files. Okay, inside of here we're going to find every file that was dropped. As you may know, it's only one file that is allowed to drop. Okay, so if we have more than one file, we are going to show a message to the user that we can only upload the file at a time. So it's going to work something like this. So every time they upload more than one file at a time, you're going to see there's going to say upload one file at a time, and you can see that we have a beautiful toaster right here, or a message showing up here on the bottom right side of the screen. And to do this, we are going to need to install this component from ChatGPT. Okay, so basically we just need to call this. So it's going to be npx ChatGPT latest at sooner. All right, and then on the layout, so we need to go to the main layout, the first one, and we just need to import it and use it in the app. Okay, so I can put it below here the body, so it's going to be toaster, it doesn't really matter, and basically that's it. So now if you're uploading more than one file, we can just return toast, so this one coming from sooner, saying upload one file at a time. All right, and then if we know that it's only one file that's being uploaded, then we can say file to upload files.0, because we know that there is only one file right here. And then we can check if this file is of type PDF. Okay, so we're going to say if file to upload.name.split, add the dot, and we are going to go to the last dot, then it's different than PDF. So if it's not PDF, that basically means that the file type is not PDF. So we can say return toast file must be a PDF. Alright, easy as that. And then we are going to check, the size of the file. Okay, so we're going to say if file to upload.size is bigger than 1024 times 1024. So this size comes in bits. All right, so in bits this is 1 megabyte. So if it's larger than 1 megabyte, then we're going to return a toast saying file must be smaller than 1 megabyte. Okay, just don't overload our database with big files. Alright, so the validation is done for the drop, and now for the file change we also need to make some validations. So it's going to be basically the same thing. Okay, so we're going to have the file to upload and we're going to make the validation. So we're just going to copy this and put it right here, and then so the file to upload is going to be actually the e.target.files because it's different, and here we can get the event from the input. So it's going to be of type React change event of HTML input element. All right, and then we can check if there's indeed a file to upload. If not, we can say if file to upload. If there's no file to upload, then we're just going to return, so we're not going to proceed to the next steps. All right, and finally what we can do on both of these functions is to actually upload the file as we already did the validations. Okay, so I'm going to create here a different function that's going to be responsible to do this job. Okay, so it's going to be const handle upload. Okay, and it's going to be async, and we need the file to upload, which is going to be a type of file. Okay, so we're just going to call it, and we're going to call it here. So we're going to await the handle upload to call the file to upload. All right, and it also has to be async right here. So put async right here, and also async right here, and call the await handle upload function. Okay, so as I said, this handle upload function is going to be responsible to actually upload the file. Okay, and those other two functions is just to make the validations and everything. All right, now let's just make a console.log right here of file to upload to see if that actually works. So I'm here on the dev application. So let me try to let me open the inspect. Nice. So let me try to upload this file right here, and you can see that every time that I upload the file, it no longer opens a new page because of this. Okay, because of those two calls. So it's going to prevent the default thing that is open a new page and stop the propagation. Okay, and it also shows us the file to upload right here, the file that we want to upload. Right, so this happens when I drag, and also happens when I click here. You can see that it opens the file explorer where I can select a document that I want, let's say this one, and you can see that it also calls it for me. All right, so now what left us to do is to make the upload functionality. Okay, so the first thing they're going to do is, if we are loading, then we're going to return. It basically means that we already have a process happening in the background, so one file is already loading, so we're going to return if that happens. And then if we're not loading, then we're going to set is loading as true to show that we are loading a file to be uploaded. Okay, and then we are going to check, we're going to get the authenticated user, so auth user. We just need to await the auth dot get auth user function that we created earlier, if you remember. And if don't have an authenticated user, then we're just going to return. So we're going to stop the function right here, and we're going to set the is loading as false, as we're not going to do any action, and return the function right here. So we're basically going to stop the function. And this is the thing that can lead to errors. We're going to make here a try catch. Okay, so if there's an error, basically what we're going to do is say toast.error and then error.message. Otherwise, we're just going to say something went wrong if error happens. And finally, so if either the thing that we're trying to do succeeds or not, then we are going to call set is loading to set as false to show that we are no longer loading, right? And here the error is of type any. Okay, so what's going to happen here? So this is what's going to happen every time that we upload the file. Okay, so we have the PDF file that we want to upload, and then we are going to upload this file to a storage service on the cloud. Okay, with this service is going to return us a URL, and then with this URL we're going to retrieve the text from this file. Okay, so we're going to send this URL to an API that's going to be responsible to get the text from this file, and then with the text from this file we're going to send this to ChatGPT, and we're going to say, hey ChatGPT, can we make a quick summary out of this text? And with this, ChatGPT is going to send us the summary. Okay, and then with this summary we are going to basically store the summary to the database and then show to the user. All right, so we can start with the first thing, which is upload the file to the cloud. All right, so here on the root we're going to create a new service. So we have the services folder, we're going to create a new folder which is going to be file, and put this on lowercase file, and then we're going to have the server.cs, and basically here we're going to be running in the server environment. So here we must say use server, and then we're going just to export an async function that's going to be called summarize file. Okay, and for this we first need the file that we want to summarize, and then the authenticated user ID, which is going to be a string like this. Okay, so for now I'm going to leave like this, and then here on the file we're going to have an index.cs. So we're going to do something similar as we did here. Okay, so first we are going to initialize the file object, which is going to contain the function, which is summarize file, and then we're just going to export it like this. I like to do this way because it's, in my opinion, it's easier to use. Okay, so then here in the quick upload component, which is getting really big, we are going to for now just call the file dot summarize file. We're going to put the file to upload right here, and then the authenticated user, the ID. Okay, so for now it's going to be like this. So let's go to the summarize function and finish it real quick. Okay, so as I showed you here in this diagram, the first thing that we need to do is upload this to the cloud, so into a storage service. And the storage service that I'm going to use is upload thing that is from this guy right here. I think you already see him in the YouTube, It's a very good product that I like to use in most of my projects. I also created a tutorial of how to use this library or this service. Is going to be in the description. So how do we actually use it in our project? The first thing that you need to do is to create an account, and as you create an account, you're going to go to your dashboard. All right, I already have plenty of projects here. As I said, I use this in most of my projects. So here I'm going to create a new app, which is going to be Dockley YouTube. You can give the name that you want, and then you can select the options that you want. For me, it's the free one. It's going to suit for our need, and with this our project is created. The only thing that we need from here is the API keys, so you can go here to API keys and just copy it. Okay, and now you're going to go to your .env file and you're just going to paste it right here. Again, .env is a place where you can store the variables that you want to keep to your application, so nobody else can see it. You are going to see it, but I'm going to. All right, with this we can create here a new folder, which is going to be upload thing, and here we're going to create an index.ts, and here we are just going to import Utah API from uploading, which we haven't installed yet. So let's just install this dependency. So it's going to be npm install upload thing, just import it, and /server because it's going to come from the server, and then basically we are going to export a const named Utah API is equal to new Utah API. All right, so this is basically the client to this service that we're going to use. Let me just wait until the installation finish. All right, and now that we have the client installed, we can go to the next step, which is making a REST API right from Next.js, right in Next.js. Okay, so we are going to create a REST API where we can upload files, and it's going to return us the URL. So here on app, and then here on app, you're going to create a new folder, which is going to be API. And then inside of API, we're going to have storage like this, and we're going to create a new one, which is going to be upload. All right, so inside of upload, we're going to create a new file, which is going to be route.ts, and as I said, this is going to be responsible to upload the files. Okay, so here we're going to just export an async function named post like this, and we are going to get the request from Next.js. So you can say here next request, there we go. And then we are going to receive a form data. Okay, so await request from data, so we're going to get it from the request, and inside of this form data we should have the file. Okay, so I'm going to say form data dot get file, and this file is going to be of type file. Okay, and then we're going to make a try catch to basically handle the uploading. So we're going to get a response, and for this we need to await Utah API, so the client that we initialized earlier. We are going to upload files. In this case it's just one, so you're going to upload this file, and then we're going to return next response.json, and we're going to return here the response. All right, so this is what's going to happen if everything goes right, and if something goes wrong, we're going to just return a next response.json of an error Okay, so we're going to say error uploading file. All right, and then I'm going to show here the message, which is going to be basically the error, and then I'm going to say the status is going to be 500. That basically means there's going to be internal server error. Okay, believe it or not, this is all it takes to create the REST API to upload the files, and now we just need to connect our service that we was creating, so service file index, server, to this REST API. So to connect it, here I'm going to create a new service, which is going to be storage, and this service is going to be responsible to upload files to the cloud. All right, so here I'm going to have index.ts. I'm going to have a server.ts. all right, and we are going to use server, of course, because it's going to be running on the server. And then we are going to basically export an async function named upload file. Okay, so we're going to get a file in the parameters, and then we are going to construct a form data, and we are going to basically construct a form data, because if we remember, here in the route that we created, we are expecting a form data from the request. So this is what we are going to create. So we're going to create here a new form data. All right, and we, inside of this form data, we are going to append the file, which is going to be the file that we get from the parameters, because here we are expecting a file from the form data. Nice. Okay, so then we're going to get a response from a fetch request that we're going to do. All right, and this fetch is going to have an endpoint. So let me create here the endpoints. So it will be storage endpoint. It's going to be storage REST API endpoint. Okay, you can give the name that you want. That is basically going to be dynamic. So it's going to have the process.env.next public app URL, which is basically is going to be an environment variable that we need to create right here. So create a .env. So in the .env file, create this next public app URL environment variable, and basically just say the place that this is running. So it's, in my case, is localhost 3000. Okay, and say make sure you say http two dots and then // okay, because this is the actual endpoint. And then here we're going to say endpoint, which is the environment variable, and then API/storage. All right, so, and then we can use this endpoint right here on the fetch, which is going to be storage REST API/upload, okay, which is going to match to this endpoint that we just created. So API storage upload, API storage upload. All right, nice. Okay, and then here we are going to show the options for the fetch. So we are going to show a method of post, okay, because we want to create something, and then the body is going to be the form data. Okay, so with this, if everything goes right, we should receive the data. Okay, so we're going to await response.json, and then with this data inside of it, we're going to have another data, and inside of this data we should have the UFS URL. This is basically going to be the URL. That basically is going to be the URL for the file. Right? So now let me go to this summarize file that we was creating, and I'm going to get an URL out of the storage, and we haven't created this yet. So let's go to here, storage, and then create the index.cs. Basically, we're going to do the same thing as we are doing on the others. So basically, we are going to create a const of storage, and this is going to include the upload file function, and then we're just going to export this storage object. And then here on the summarize file, we're going to call the storage.file upload, and then of course we need to pass the file. And then for now, we're just going to console log the URL. All right. So let me just see if we're calling the summarize function in the quick upload component. So let me say here, quick upload, and we are. So here, let me get, so here, let me just say result for now. So we are calling this, all right. And let me see if we can get the URL back from the function, right? So now let me try to upload something here. So let me refresh first, and let me upload this. Okay, so speech, and let me see if I can get something back. So as you can see, this is compiling the API storage upload endpoint, and it's done compiling. Let me see if we can get something back, and we can. So we get this URL back, which is basically a public URL that we can access the file that I just uploaded. All right. And if you go to uploading and go to files, you're going to find the file that you just uploaded. Very, very nice. So at this point, we are in this position right here where we get the PDF file, we upload to the cloud, and now we have the file URL. All right. And now we can move to the next part where we are going to retrieve the text from the file. So what I'm going to do here is check if we don't have an URL. Then I'm going to throw a new error saying couldn't generate an URL for the file. All right. So if we do have a URL, what I'm going to do is basically get the text from this URL. Get the text from the file from this URL, and then summarize it. Okay. So here I'm going to get summary, which is basically we are going to create here a new function in a minute. All right. So here on the services, we are going to create a new service, which is going to be AI. So here I'm going to say AI, and inside of AI, we are going to have the index.cs as we always do. Okay. So here I'm going to say const AI is going to be an object, and then I'm going to export this AI object. Okay, so this AI is going to have, this AI service is going to also have a server, as we always do. And in this server, we're going to say use server. So this is actually going to run on the server environment. And then here we're going to export an async function, which is going to be named summarize file. And for this, we are going to need an URL, which is a string. And yeah, for now, we're going to just leave like this, and then we can go back to the index.ts and import the function that we just created. So summarize file, make sure that this is being imported inside of server./shared server. There you go. So we can close everything and go back here to the file server file, and here we can import AI and also call the summarize file function. As we define the function, we need to pass the URL here inside in order this to work. All right. So now let's work inside of this actual function, so summarize file, and all this is going to do is just call an endpoint, which we are just going to call an endpoint which we are going to create ourselves. So here we're going to say const endpoint and point, which is going to be here a dynamic variable, which is just going to be process.env.next public /app/url, this is not slash, this is underscore, my bad, and then API slash AI slash summarize. All right, so basically we have this environment variable, if you remember, here on the .env file, which is next public app URL. So we're just going to call this endpoint so we can get the summary from this file. And by the way, this is endpoint we are going to create ourselves, as I said. Okay, so basically we're going to get a response from a fetch to this endpoint that we just defined, and the method is going to be post right here. So it's going to be post, and the headers is going to be content type. Okay, so just say here content type, make sure you spell that right, and it's going to be application slash JSON. All right, so this is basically saying that the request that we're going to make, or the post that we're going to make, is on this type, which is JSON. And then the body is the information that we're going to send into the other party, is going to be a JSON.stringify. So we're going to stringify this object, which is going to just be an URL. Okay, from this we are going to get a data, okay, which is basically we're going to transform the response. You're going to get the response in JSON, and we're going just to transform it into a variable, into an object that we can actually view it on JavaScript. Okay, so for now, I'm going just to console log the data. All right, that's all I'm going to do. And the thing that we need to do now is the actual endpoint that we defined here. So again, this is going to be inside of API. So here it is API. And then here inside of API, we want to create a new folder, which is going to be AI. All right. And inside of AI, we're going to create a new folder, which is going to be summarize. Okay. And then inside of summarize, we're going to create a route.ts, as we also did here on the storage. Okay. So we just need to create a route.ts to make Next.js identify this as a route for the API. So here is where the things start getting a little bit complex, but we are going to go step to step until we finish it. Okay, so as I said here on this summarize file function, what we're going to do is a method of post. All right, so we already have the route, but we don't have the actual endpoint. So here we're going to export an async function that's going to be named post. So Next.js is going to understand this as an endpoint where we can make post requests. Okay, so you're always going to get a request which is of type next request, and here is where we can start making all the logic. Okay, so as I said, it's going to be a little bit complex, so things can go wrong. As things can go right, it can also go wrong. So we're going to say try and catch. If you don't know what this block is used for, is basically when something wrong happens in this try catch, it's going to always fall into this catch statement where we can get the error and actually fix it. So if for some reason something goes wrong, I'm going to say console log error, and then I'm going to just show the error like this, and then I'm going to return a next response .json, and here I'm going to put an object inside with the error that with an error saying internal server error, and then the details I'm going just to show the error like this. Okay, so the plain error, and if you want to get fancy, you can just press status right here 500, that means internal server error. All right, but the actual functionality is going to be here inside of the try catch. So the first thing that we're going to do is get the URL. All right, and this URL, I'm going to get the URL, and this URL is going to come from the request.json. Okay, so we're going to get this inside of the body. If you remember, we passed the URL inside of the body, so what we're going to do is just get this URL back on the actual endpoint that we just created. All right, and after this, if you remember here in the graphics that I showed you, what we're going to do is first retrieve the text from the file. And how are we going to do that? So basically, So basically we're going to use a third-party service that basically gets, so what we're going to do is use a third-party service that basically retrieves an URL from a file. It can be PDF, it can be JSON, it can be CSV, and it returns the text back. It returns the text that is present in this file, in the URL file that we submitted. All right. So just head over to app.pdf.co. The link is going to be in the description if you want to access quicker. And what you have to do is basically sign up, all right, and create an account. I already have one, so I'm just going to log in. So as you log in, you're going to see that you have 10,000 credits. I have 8,000 because I've been using this for testing. But what you can do here is copy your API token, your API key, and then head over to .env in your Visual Studio Code, and you can just paste it right here. Okay, so here I'm going to give a name of PDF CO API underscore key, which is going to be this. All right, so this is going to be the key for the service that's going to get the URL, the file URL, and transform into text. All right, so now we can go back to this route right here, and what we can do is another fetch request. Okay, so fetch, and this time is going to be to the actual server that I'm talking about. So it's going to be http TPS //api.pdf.co /v1/convert/to/text. All right, so make sure you spell that right. And then here I'm going to pass the options. So here the method is going to be post, and the headers is going to be content type, and then application /JSON, like this, and then X API key. This is a header that we need to pass, which is going to be our API key. So we already have it, so it's going to be process.env.pdf.co API key, like this. All right, and finally you can pass here the body. The body is just going to be a JSON.stringify. The only thing that we need to pass here is the URL, and we are all set. And you're going to receive an error here on headers because it's saying that API key. So we are going to receive we're going to receive an error on headers because it's going to say that API key might be undefined, but we're going to say that this is going to be defined. And with this, we are almost done with the functionality of retrieving the text from the file. Let me just say here const res. All right, and then let me transform this from my JSON. So I'm going to say await res.json, and then let me console log the data. All right, so let me see if this is actually working. Let me turn the server back on. So let's test it out. I'm going to select here a file. Let me select the speech one. Let me go back to the Visual Studio Code, and let me see the logs if I can get something back, and I do. So what I receive is an URL. Okay, and what you can do with this URL, you can open it, and what you're going to see is a page with text. Okay, so this is actually the content from the file that I uploaded. You can see here it ends with thank you very much, and here it also ends with thank you very much. So that means that what we are doing is actually working. Okay, but of course we don't want another URL. All right, so we pass an URL and we are getting back an URL. That's not what we want. What we want is the actual data or the text from the file, right? So but before that, before doing that, what I'm going to do is check if we have errors. So if data has an error, or if data.url doesn't exist, if we don't have an URL, then that means that something bad happened. So I'm going to throw an error saying pdf.call conversion failed. If that didn't happen, that means that we are good, right? So what I'm going to do is say text res, and then we are going to await a yes. We're going to do another fetch, because if you didn't know, this is an URL, right? So this is an URL. What we can do is fetch the actual page, or the content of the page, and get the text. All right, you're going to see that in action once I test it. So let me console log the text res. Okay, so here we're going to say text res to see what we get back, and then after that text res, I'm going to get the actual text, which is going to be await text res and text. Okay, so we're going to get the actual text, and I'm going to console log that too to see what we get back. All right, so now let me go back to my application, and I'm going to upload the same file. And once I go back to the Visual Studio Code, you see that it happens to post, and we get an error. PDF conversion failed, and we got a 500 error code. Let me just refresh the page and see if that's indeed an error that we should worry. So let me upload again, and there we go. So here what you can see is that we get a text response, right? And we post here the URL. So the URL, we get the response, and from this response we summarize the text, and that's what we get back, the actual text. All right, so now this step is actually completed. So we finally retrieve the text from the file, and now what we can do is send this to ChatGPT, summarize it, and finally store in the database. So let's do it. Okay, so I can remove these console logs once we know everything is working fine, and now we can start messing with ChatGPT. All right, so basically now what we have to do is to initialize OpenAI client or ChatGPT client, so we can actually use AI in our application. Okay, and to do this is actually very easy. I'm going to just open here a new terminal, and what I'm going to do is install a new dependency, which is named OpenAI. All right, so OpenAI is the company that is behind ChatGPT, and it's going to give us access to ChatGPT features. Okay, now that the dependencies is installed, we can import OpenAI. That this is coming from OpenAI, and this is OpenAI like this. And now we're going to initialize the client. Okay, so constant is going to be OpenAI, which is going to be a new OpenAI, and here we just need to pass the API key, which is going to be process.env.openAPI key, and we don't have that yet. I mean, here's not open, is OpenAI. Make sure you spell that right. So it's going to be OpenAI _ API _ key. Okay, and of course we have to create this API key. And now all you have to do is just head over to this page. I'm going to leave the link in the description, and here we just need to log in. You can log in with an account that you have, and then what you're going to do is click here on create new secret key. You can give a key that you want. I'm going to say Dockley. Okay, and you can select here a project. I already have a project created. You just need to create one, and you can click here on create secret key, and this is going to generate a key for you. You just gotta copy it, go back to Visual Studio Code, and then paste it right here. Simple as that. Now we have our OpenAI client created and we can start using it. So first we need to create a completion. So we need to await OpenAI. We're going to access the chat service, and we are going to go to the completion object and we're going to create a new one. Okay, so what this needs is basically first a model, the model that we're going to use. I'm going to say GPT for all mini. You can use the one that you want. I'm going to use that one. You can also send here messages. It's like instructions for the for your AI model. All right, so here I'm going to say role system. So we're going to say to ChatGPT, we're going to give instructions to him. So here in the content for the message, we're going to say you are a helpful assistant that summarizes documents concisely. All right, so this is what we're telling to ChatGPT. We are saying that he is a model. He's an assistant that summarizes documents consistently. And then here is going to be the actual message from the user. Okay, so here the role is user, and we are going to pass here the content. So it's the actual message, and this is going to be dynamic. So here we're going to say summarize the following document text in 2 to 3 sentences, like this. And then here we're going to use this to change the line, and again, so we're going to go through 2 lines, and then we are going to show or pass the actual text that we got back from this API. Okay, so basically we're going to summarize. So what we're saying to ChatGPT is to summarize the following document in 2 to 3 sentences, and we're going to pass the text from the API. Okay, then we have some other things that we need to pass, which is max tokens, max completion tokens. Is going to be 500. It's going to be 150, and then temperature, which is going to be 0.7. So in the temperature basically means how creative the AI is. The more temperature you give, the less creative it becomes, but it becomes more accurate. All right, now that we have the instructions that we gave to ChatGPT in the actual prompt, what we can do now is get the summary. Okay, so it's going to be const summary, and we're going to go to the completion. We're going to get choices. We're going to get the first one, and we're going to have the message and the actual content from the message. And finally, we can console log this summary. All right, so to make sure that everything is right. So now let's go back to our app. All right, and here I'm going to paste the speech document. Okay, so let me open it, go back and open the terminal to see what we get back. And if you scroll a little bit up, you're going to see an error. No response is returned, but you can ignore that. We're just getting an error because we're not returning anything in our endpoint. But what we see here is the actual summary that we get from ChatGPT, and you can read it if you want, but it's basically a summary from the document that I just passed through, All right, so now that we have the summary, we can actually return this back to the client. Okay, so I'm going to just say return next response.json, and we're going to get the summary. Okay, so we're going to pass the summary, and the status is going to be 200 because everything went right. All right, so basically we are done with this file. We're not going to make any modifications, and we can go here to this file, so summary file from the AI service, and what we're going to do is just return data.summary, and I'm using this question mark because the data object may not exist. Okay, if something goes wrong, this data is not going to exist, and per consequence the summary is not also going to exist. So I'm just checking if data exists, then give me the data.summary. If not, then give me undefined or no. Okay, now that we have this finished, we can go back to the summarize file from the file service. Okay, make sure in the right file. And now that we get the summary, we can check if we don't have a summary. Okay, just to make sure, we can throw a new error, which is going to say couldn't generate a summary for the file. Okay, and now that we have all of those informations, we can finally store this in a database. And the database that we're going to use is Postgres, and the ORM that we're going to use is Drizzle. So Drizzle, if you don't know what ORM is basically a client that allows us to have a more user-friendly interaction with the database. For ORMs, we have Drizzle. You can also use Prisma, which is also a very good choice. But for this tutorial, I'm going with Drizzle because it's way faster than Prisma, and it's something that is really cool to learn. Alright, so you can go to the installation. So you can go to the installation page, which is this. I'm going to leave the link in the description so you can access faster. And the first thing that we need to do is install Drizzle ORM and PG, which is Postgres. Okay, so let me open a new terminal, and I'm going to put this side by side so it's going to be easier to see what we are doing. And then I'm going to install Drizzle kit and types PG like this. So this is just for typings and type safety. And now that we have those two things, these four things installed, we can go to the root of our project and create here a new folder, which is going to be DB. It stands for database. And here I'm going to create an index.ts, and here I'm going to initialize the client. So the first thing that I'm going to do is import Drizzle, and this is coming from Drizzle ORM / neon http. Okay, and then I'm going to initialize the database, which is going to be just the Drizzle, and then here we're going to pass the database URL. We don't have it yet. We're going to create it in a minute. So it's going to be process.env.database URL and put an exclamation mark in the end. So it's going to assume that this variable exists. And then finally we can export it so we can use whatever we want. Okay, so as I said, this variable is not created yet. So let me just create it real quick. So here in the .env, we can find here a space for the database URL, and the service that I always use for creating database is Neon. Okay, so you can head over to neon.com, and again I'm going to leave the link in the description so you can access. And here you can click on start for free. It's going to ask you to create an account. I already have one, so I want to use the one that I have created. As you log in, you're going to find this dashboard right here, and what you can do here is create a new project and give a project name. I'm going to say Dockley demo. You can choose the cloud service provider. You have AWS or Azure. I'm going to use AWS, and then for the region you can choose the nearest region that you have. I'm going to say Frankfurt. I think is the closest one, and then I click here on create. Once you have done that, you can go here to dashboard, and dashboard you're going to have the branches, and you have the production branch and the development branch. I'm going to go to the production branch and click here on connect, and here is going to show you your connection string that you just have to paste and go back to Visual Studio Code and paste it right here. Okay, so this is going to be a connection string that is going to allow you to connect to the actual database. Okay, now that we have the database client created, we can go and create a schema. If you don't know what schema is basically a way to say to the database how your data is going to look like. And what we want to store in the database is objects for files. All right. So what we're going to do here is export a const, which is going to be file table. You can say file schema if you want. I'm going to say file table because that's how they define variables in the documentation, on the Drizzle documentation. And here I want to just say this is going to be a Postgres table, and this is going to be a function that's coming from Drizzle or Elm /pg core. Okay, and here you can give the name that's going to show in the actual database. Okay, so the name of this is going to be files. All right, and now I'll always put plural because it's going to be files like this. And the properties or the attributes that this table is going to include is ID, and it's going to be of type UUID. Okay, make sure you import this from PG core, and the table column name is going to be ID, and then the default value is going to be random like this, and we can say this is going to be the primary key. All right, and then we have the created at property, which is going to be a date. Okay, make sure you import this from PG core. Always import from PG core. And then in the column is going to be named created at like this, and the default value is going to be default now. And then we're going to have the URL, which is varchar. That means that this is a string, and the name is going to be URL. The length, okay, the max length is going to be through 255, and cannot never be null. Also, we're going to have the name, which is basically the same thing, so I'm just going to copy and paste right here, change here to name, and also do the same thing right here. And you're also going to have the uploaded by ID. Okay, so the person who uploaded this file, so I'm going to say varchar here, and it's going to be uploaded by ID, which is going to be, it's going to have a length of 255, and it can never be null. And finally, we're going to have the actual summary. All right, and summary can be very large or be very small. So instead of a varchar, which has a limit of 255 characters, we are going to say this is going to be a text which is almost unlimited. Okay, and again, it's coming from PG core, and the name is going to be summary, and it can never be null. All right, so make sure you have everything right. And again, it can never be from MySQL, it's always from PG, which is Postgres. So make sure you do that. Nice. And now that we have our schema done, we can export a type, which is going to be file. And to get the type out of this variable right here, is going to be infer select model. And then we're going to get the type of file table. All right, nice. All right, nice. Now that we have the schema and the database client created, we can go back here to this function that we were creating. So summarize file from the server, and what we're going to do is await db, so database, to insert on the file table. Okay, and here we can pass the values that we want to insert. So the name is going to be the file.name. Okay, the summary is going to be the summary. The uploaded by ID is going to be the outfit user ID, and the URL is going to be the URL that we get from this function. All right, and then here we're going to say returning. That basically means that we're asking the database to return the values that we just inserted. Okay, and you can get this right here. So it's going to be row like this, and we can finally return this row.id. Okay, so let's summarize what we have done right here. So basically, first we are uploading a file, and this file is going to be uploaded to the cloud, and from this we get a file URL. With this file URL, we send to a third-party service, which is going to get the text from the file of this URL, and it's going to send to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is going to return as a summary, and from this summary we're going to store everything in the database. So this is what we are doing basically in this function. All right, so now let's go to the place where we are actually calling this function, which is here. So on private home components, quick upload index and quick upload component, we are calling this function, and now we just have to finish the functionality that we are doing. Okay, so here we're going to get the file ID. So if you remember, when we as we inserted the file content, we are going to get back the row, and then we get the row ID, so it's going to be the file ID that we get back. And with this we can go and say router. So for now, let me just console log the file ID to make sure everything went right, and here we're going to say give a message like this to make sure that everything went right, so we can move to the next steps. All right, so let me go back to the our app, and what we get is an error. Okay, so can't resolve Neon database serverless. So let me just restart the server to see if it fixes our problem. So by the time that I'm making this video, the way that we set up Neon and Drizzle actually changed. So now here on the database you have to make some modifications. So first we need to, so there are some things that we still need to install. So first is Neon serverless, which I think we didn't install, that's why it's giving those errors. Nice. Now that we go back, now everything is working, but we was about to test to see if everything works. But if we go to our database and go to tables, you're going to see that nothing exists because we didn't actually push the changes that we have made here to the actual database on production. So we're going to use npm drizzle kit push, npx to make the actual command, and drizzle kit push, which is going to push the changes that we have here in our local code to make the changes that we have made here in our local code to the actual database that is online. All right, and what we get is no config path provided using default drizzle config.json. So before doing anything, we have to create here a configuration file for Drizzle. It's going to be very straightforward. So it's going to be drizzle.config.ts. Okay, and basically we are going to import .env/config like this, and we're also going to import define config from not this, but from drizzle kit like this. It's not default config, it's define config like this, and we're going to export a default define config. Make sure you spell export right. Nice. And out, we have to define here the properties. So the first one is going to be out drizzle, so this is coming from Drizzle, and schema is going to be located in the db/schema.ts. If you remember, it's where located, so in the current location, then db and then schema.ts. And dialect is the database that we are using, so dialect is going to be PostgreSQL, and db credentials is going to be just the URL, which is located on the process.env.database URL, and again exclamation mark to state to that this actually exists. All right, so let's try again. So we're going to use npx drizzle kit push, and cannot find module.env/config. This is one of the modules that we still need to install. Okay, so here I'm going to say first npm.env. all right, and now let me try this again. So npx drizzle kit push, and it seems that everything is right. So let me go to neon, is where we have our database created. Let me go to tables, maybe refresh here the page, or just click here, and as you can see, it created a new table right here with the attributes that we defined. All right, so now let's just see if the integration is actually working. So let me click here on select a file, and let me say speech to see if we get something back. What we are expecting back is the ID. Okay, so we set to return the ID. Okay, so console log the ID. So let me go to the inspect tab, go to console.log, and look for an ID, and actually forgot to say await here, but hopefully we get something back. So the promise is pending, and the promise here is pending, so I just have to go here and say await to actually await the result, and do that again to see if this is going to work. So let me just open, and hopefully we're going to get something back. And there we go, we have file ID. That means that we have uploaded it successfully. And let me just check the database. I've attempted sometimes, and as you can see, we have 2 files uploaded. That means that everything is working, and hopefully we also have here the summary. So let me just scroll here a little bit to the right, and we have here the summary looking very, very good. All right, so now we have this page almost created. The only thing that is missing is some padding right here. So go to the layout, or just use Ctrl+Shift+F, and then look for App Sidebar. All right, and it's going to show you this file right here. And here on the sidebar inset, you just have to say P8. All right, and then Up Sidebar, the variant is going to be inset. All right, or if you prefer, just head over to App Private, Home, Layout, and then there you go. All right, now you can see that this is very lookalike. As you can see, it's almost identical. So now this page is created, we can move to the next one, which is the home page. All right, so the home page is very simple. We just say hi to the user with the user profile showing right here, and it shows the documents of the user. All right, so this, what we are going to do is going to be fairly easy. So for this, we just need to go to the home page. Okay, this is where it says this is a private page. Again, to find this file, you can use Ctrl+Shift+F and say this is a private file. You should have the same thing written right here. And now we can start coding. Okay, as I showed you, this is going to show the authenticated user, right? So that means that we need to first get the user that is authenticated. So here I'm going to export the default async function, and this we're going to get the auth user from the auth dot, make sure you call auth from services /auth, and we're going to call the get auth user function. All right, and if it doesn't have any authenticated user, then we can return null. This is almost impossible because this page is only accessible to authenticated users. And then we are going to get, for now, let's just get the user. All right, then we can move to the part where we list the documents. All right, so here I'm going to, inside of the div, I'm going to say class name space y4, and then here I'm going to have a div, and here I'm going to say class name flex items center, and then gap of 4 text for XL, and then here I'm going to show the avatar of the user. So this is coming from components UI avatar. Make sure you have this, and then class name is going to be H20 width 20 and then rounded large like so, and then we are going to have the avatar image like this, and the source is going to be outfit user dot image URL, and the alt tag is just going to be outfit user dot name. As you can see, the author user avatar is already showing up, which is really good, and also going to include, which is pretty good. And then below the avatar, I'm going to show here a div with a class name of flex item center and then gap of 2, and the span is just going to show the emoji saying hi. All right, so you can either go to Google and search hi emoji, or if you prefer, then use Windows and dot and look for the hi emoji. I already have it here, so I'm just going to copy it, paste it right here. All right, so it's just going to say the hi emoji and then say hi, and then comma and some space, and then we're also going to have a span right here of outfit user dot name, and it's going to have a class name of font semi-bold. All right, very nice. Okay, so let me format the document real quick, and below this div that we just have created, we're going to create here a HR, and below, I mean, this is not that div, HR, and below this HR we are going to show the document list, which is this thing right here. Okay, so we have finished this, and now we are going to make the document list, and this is actually going to be a component. Okay, so here inside of homes we have this underscore component folder, and we are going to create here a new folder, which is going to be document list. All right, documents list, make sure you spell that right. And here we're going to have the index.ts. all right, and here we're just going to export a default function, which is going to be document list. All right, so basically we are going to type this real quick. So basically what we're going to accept here is summaries, and say here summaries, or you can say documents, which is, I think, is more easier to understand. So here's going to be documents or files, it's the same thing, doesn't matter. And then we can type here as file array. Okay, and this file is not the native file type, is the file that we created here on schema. If you remember, we have this type created right here. So we're just saying that we are expecting an array of files, and then we can return a div. We're going to return a div right here. Make sure you say tsx, not ts. Okay, so this is going to be gsx. Nice. And now here the class name is going to be, so we're going to have here the class name of pi8 and space y6. all right, so let me just pass here the actual document so we can see it. So we have here the page, right? And here on the page, so we are going to go back to the file services, okay, and go to the server. So to see the actual documents, we have to create a new function in our file services. So we're going to go to the file services and go to the server, and here I'm going to export an async function, which is going to be called get for latest user summaries. Okay, so here I'm just going to get the for latest one. As you can see, if I go to my documents, I have 5 in total. This is the build version or the final version of the app, But if I go to home, you're going to see that I only have 4. So I'm going to show the 4 latest summaries. And for this, we're going to be needing the authenticated user. So here I'm going to say auth user ID, which is going to be a string. And then I'm going to get the files, which is just by awaiting the database to select from the file table database every file where it's equal. So import this equal from Drizzle or M, okay, where it's equal the file table dot uploaded by ID, it's equal to the author user ID. All right, and then what I can do is order by descendant, and here I can pass the property that I want to that I want to use to order. And here I'm going to say created at, and then I'm going to say limit, which is going to be 4, like this. Okay, so it might seem a little bit complicated, but it's not. So basically I'm going to the file table table. So I'm going to the file table, and I'm going to get every row where the uploaded by ID is equal to the authenticated user. Okay, and then I'm just going to order by the created at property, and I'm just going to get 4 of this of those matches. Okay, and then what I can do is simply return the file so we can actually use it. Okay, now going back to the pages. Now going back to the page, here I'm going to say const summaries, which I'm just going to await the file to get the 4. Okay, so file, oh, of course we need to pass this function to the index so we can actually use it. So go to the index and pass this function right here and make sure you import it. And now let's go back to the page and call this get for latest user summaries, which first we need to pass the authenticated user. So auth user.id, like this, and we get back the documents. All right, so now we can call the document list function or component and pass the documents inside. Okay, and we can pass here like this. Okay, now going back to the component, and let me put this side by side so we can see what we're doing. So what is going to happen here is we are going to have a div, and then we're going to have a h1 saying my documents. All right, so this h1 is going to have a class name of text 3xl and then font bold. And then as you can see here in the build version, we have a different type or a different font for this title. So we're going to do the same thing here. So for this we need to say, first we need to import the font that we want to use. So the font is Simonetta, like this coming from Next Font Google, and then we just have to initialize it. So it's going to be Simonetta, which is equal to Simonetta, and then the subset is going to be Latin, and then the weight is going to be 400. Okay, it has to be inside of quotes like this, and then here we just say that the font that we want to use is Simonetta.class name. All right, so if everything goes right, we can see here the font name changing. One thing here is that this document list should be below this other div. Okay, so below this document list, it should only have one div. All right, so now going back to the document list component again, what we're going to do now is map the actual documents. Okay, so I'm going to create here a container div, which is going to have the class name of grid calls 1 for the medium device, for the normal devices or small devices, and then for the medium devices I'm going to have 2 columns. Okay, so calls 2, and for the extra large devices we're going to have 3 columns, so calls 3 like this, and we're going to have a gap of 6 for some spacing. And then let me get the actual documents that we got, and we're going to make a map through those documents. Alright, and what is going to happen is that we are going to return here the document, which is going to be a link. So it's going to create here next link, say here link, and let me get the document from here, and then key is going to be document.id, and then the href, so the link that is going to, we are going to be redirected when we click here, is going to be home/summary/ $, and then document.id. So we're going to go to a page where we can see more information about this document, and then the class name is going to be a little bit big, so it's going to be relative, and then rounded, and then border gray 200, and then shadow small p of 6, so for some padding, and then when we hover, the shadow is going to increase a little bit, so it's going to be shadow medium. We're also going to have a transition, so everything is going to go smoother on the animation, and then the background is going to be white like this. Alright, so now let's create the actual card for the file, and first we're going to have a button right here, so buttons from components, and this button is going to have a class name of absolute right to top 2. This is the bookmark or to add for the favorites button. Okay, and we can put here bookmark icon right here, and also don't forget here the variant, which is the outline one. Nice. So this button is going to appear in the top right of the card. This feature is only going to be available on the paid version of this tutorial, where besides the other features that I showed you earlier, so I'm going to teach you how to create add favorite feature in this application. Alright, so below this button we're going to have here a div, and this div is going to have a class name of margin bottom of 2 and text of small, and also going to have a text gray of 500 like this, and here we're going to say uploaded and like this, and then we're going to say the data that this was uploaded. Okay, so it's going to say doc.created add, and then we're going to say new date. Okay, and then here say date.created add to locale string, date string I mean, something like this. And if we don't have a created that date, then we're going to say unknown. Alright, we just simply don't know. And here's no date, this is doc, so doc created at, yeah, something like this. Alright, and then below this div we're going to have a h2, which is going to say document.name, so it's just going to say the name of the document. We are going to add some styles, so it's going to be text large, font semi-bold, margin bottom of 2, and truncate like this. And below this h2 we're going to have a p tag, which we're going to say document.summary, so we're just going to put the summary right here below, and the class name is going to be text small, text gray 700 for the color, And then line clamp, this basically is going to decrease the line height. You see, when I do this, the text is going to become smaller because the height of the text is going to decrease. Alright, so we are done with this component too. We have just finished it, and this is the final result. It's just a card with some basic information, and when we click on a card, we are going to get a 404 because this page where we are being redirected to doesn't exist. Okay, so the home page is done. We can also do the dashboard, which is just putting two components together. So we can create the dashboard component or dashboard page, which is just putting two components together. All right, so let me go back to the root of our folder, and here inside of app and inside of home, I'm going to have a new folder which is going to be dashboard. All right, and here we're going to have the page.tsx. So we're just going to create here a quick page which is going to be named dashboard page if you want to be more fancy. Okay, and the thing is going to be the same. First we are going to get the authenticated user, or if you are too lazy, you can go back to the page that we created earlier, so here in the page, and just copy it because it's going to be the same. All right, so we're just going to copy this. All right, of course we have to transform this into an async function, and also call the auth from services and also file from the services. There we go. And then we're going to have here this div, and inside of this div we're going to have the quick upload component being called. Okay, so quick upload component, there we go, and also the document list right here, where we just have to pass the documents inside. All right, documents like this. Now this page is successfully created. We can go to dashboard, and there we go. We can see here this quick upload component and also the documents list showing up. And the other page is my documents page, which is just shows all of the documents from the user on one page. And you see how it is to create the page once the components is created. So we're just going to do it right now. So here I'm going to create a new folder which is going to be documents, and here I'm going to create the page.tsx. Okay, I'm going to use the rfc command to create it real quick for me, and then I'm going to say documents page. All right, and what I want to do is the same thing as I did in the other pages. So I'm just going to copy it real quick and paste it right here. Okay, the only difference here is that we are not going to use the quick upload component. We do need the auth user, so I'm just going to import here the dependencies, so auth and file. Also transform this into an async function so we can actually await. And then here I'm just going to pass the documents list. And one other thing is that this is not going to be get for latest summaries, latest user summaries. It's going to get all of the summaries, since this is going to list everything. So let me go back here to the server, and here I'm going to create a new function which is going to be named get user summaries. Okay, and I'm going to get the auth user ID, which is a string, and basically I'm going to say const files. It's basically the same thing as we did here, but we are not going to have the actual limit, so it's just going to return everything. Okay, and then finally we can return files. Again, create. All right, so now we can go to index.js and import this function that we just have made. So get user Summaries. All right, and then go to the documents page and replace here the function to get user summaries. And with that, we have finished all of the pages. So now let me just refresh this real quick, and you can see here the page showing up. The only page that is not done yet is this favorites page, because it's going to be done in the paid version of this tutorial. So on the paid version, once you upload a file, it's going to ask you which size you want the summary. If you want the summary large, medium, or small, I'm going to say large. It's going to show this loading sign, and then it's going to get you to the file. And then if you want to ask questions about the content of the file, you say like, when was the Roman Empire created? You can ask to the AI, and it's going to give you an actual answer based on the file that you provided. Besides that, you're also going to have plans, so only the pro users can ask questions to the AI. If I log out from this user, if I log in with a user which is not a pro user, and if I try to log in with a user which is not pro, and I try to access the chat feature, it's going to say you gotta have a pro plan to access this feature. So definitely click on the link down below to learn how to improve your application. Alright guys, so we finished pretty much all of the pages. The only page that left us to do is the details page. So I'm going to show you an example of how this is going to look like. So this is the finished version of the application, and let me throw a document right here. So I'm going to choose the Roman Empire one. I'm going to leave those documents in the description just in case if you want to use it for testing. So basically every time that we upload a document, it's going to show up right here on my documents. This part we already did, and when you click in one of the documents, you can see more details about the document. So let me just expand this a little bit so you can see it. So basically here we're going to have a really not too difficult page to do. So in the left we have this container where we can see the document. We can see a preview of the document. And then on the right side we have a little container that you can see is AI generated, is where we show the summary. And here we have two tabs, which is the first one is the summary. So, and then you have here the chat tab that basically we can ask questions to the AI about the document that we uploaded. This feature is only going to be available on the paid version of this tutorial. So as you can see, when I type something, this is not going to work because this feature is not going to be implemented. But I want to show you how this is going to work on the paid version of this tutorial. So this is the paid version of this tutorial. So this is the built version of the paid version of the tutorial. And when we go to the chat tab, it's going to say that we have to be on the pro plan to access this feature. So let me just go to the plans here. Again, those features is not going to be available on this tutorial, only for the paid version. And then we have to upgrade to pro version. So let me upgrade to pro, and then here I have to make the payments. So I'm basically making a subscription. I'm going to put here my card information. This is a mock number, okay, that Stripe provides us to make testing. So yeah, here I'm going to put my name, and then I'm going to pay and advance and proceed. And then when we complete the payment, you can now see that we now have this badge right here saying that we are a pro users. We are pro users. And now when I go to chat, you now see that this feature is available. If I want to ask questions about this document to the chat, I can, for example. So for example, it says, according to legend, Rome was founded in this year. I don't know how to say that. I can ask the chat this question. So when was the Roman Empire found it. And I can ask, you can see that this is thinking, and then this is going to give me an answer saying that Roman Empire was founded in this year according to the document summary. All right, so it actually goes to the document and sees and analyzes, and then it answers my questions. All right, besides that, we're also going to have this view original PDF that is going to take us to the original PDF. All right, so we can access the PDF right here, and then we can add it to the favorites. This feature is only available for the paid version of this course too. All right, and then it shows the date that this was uploaded. All right, so we are going to build this page right now. All right, so let's start building it. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do again here is upload the document. All right, so I'm going to select here file. Let me select the Roman Empire one. I'm going to open and upload this. One thing that I noticed that I forgot to do is here on the quick upload component. So just use Ctrl and P and then look for the quick upload component. All right, so it's this component right here. If you want, you can go to app and then private, then home, then components, then quick upload, and then index.js. So basically we had this is loading flag right here to show if we are either loading or not. So we are using here on the functions, but we can also use this on the AI, on the UI to show if we are loading or not, to show something to the user. All right, so basically here on the we have this is dragon to show this animation in case we are dragging, and then we can also check if we are loading, then we can show animation. So we're going to set the opacity to 50, the pointer event to none in case if we're loading, otherwise we're not going to show anything. And then here on the button, so this button right here, we are going to say that this is going to be disabled just in case if we are loading. All right, it's just that. Now we can go back to the application. We're going to select here file and we are going to open. So let me select here file, and now when we select a file, you see that this is going to have this little animation to show either if we're loading or not. And then we can go to the dashboard, and here is the files. All right, so one thing that we can do is every time that we upload the file, we get redirected automatically to the document that we uploaded. So to do this, first we need to initialize the router. So here I'm going to say const. So here we have to initialize the router. So I'm going to say router is equal to use router from navigation, like this. And then here, make sure you import this from navigation. So next slash navigation. And then here, once we upload the file, we're going to get the file ID, and then we can do a router.push to slash home slash summary slash file ID to take us to the file ID. Okay, as you know, this page is not created yet, but we are going to create it now. All right, so here on the file explorer, you can go to private folder and then home, and then we are going to create here a new folder inside of home, which is going to be summary. All right, and then the summary is going to have this dynamic page, summary is going to have this dynamic page, which is going to be ID. So we use those brackets to say that this is going to be dynamic, just because here we have like summary and then slash and then this dynamic ID. So basically we're going to do this. So ID, and then to turn this into a page, we're just going to say here page.tsx. all right, and then we're going to use the rfc command to create this real quick for us. If you don't have this extension, the name is ES7 React Redux GraphQL. You just have to search it up on the marketplace install it, and you can use it. Okay, so create this page. All right, so I'm going to name summary page like this, and as I said, it's going to be a dynamic page, so we are going to get some params. All right, so if you don't know what params is, it's basically this. So this is a param. Okay, in our case, we named this param ID. So if you go here to the file explorer, you're going to see that the param that we named here is ID, right? So this is going to be params, and then inside of params, so we're just going to type what we are going to find inside of params. So inside of params, we have the ID, which is a string. Basically, it's the ID of the document that we want to get, right? All right, for now, we're just going to show this ID to the user like this. Params.id. All right, so we're just going to do this for now. So now let's test it out. So let me go to localhost 3000, and here I'm going to select the file, the Roman Empire one, and I'm going to open. So this is now uploading, and when it finishes uploading, what it's going to do is going to take us right to the summary page. All right, and when we upload the document, it's going to take us to this page right here that for now we can only see the ID. All right, so now let's build this page real quick. All right, so this is how this is supposed to look, and this is what we have for now. All right, so let's just start creating this page, and yeah. All right, so we already have access to the ID, so to the document that we want. So with this ID, what we can do is create here a function on the server. So on the services for the file, so you go here and look for the services folder, and for the file, we're going to create here a new function. So here we're going to say export async function. We are going to name get summary. And basically what we're going to do, we are going to require a file ID, which is going to be a string. And what we are going to do is just get a file. From this await db.select. So we're going to select everything from the table of file table, right? And we're only going to get so we're going to get the only row where the file ID is equal. So file table dot ID. So this column is equal to file ID. All right. So basically, what we're doing here is just look for a row on this table that where the file ID is equal to file ID. All right, and then we can return this file. All right. So now here on page, what we can do, all right, now that we created this function, we can go to the index and add this to the object. So it's going to be get summary, like this. And now we can go to the page that we are creating, and then here I'm going to get the file data, which we just have to await for the file object. So let me just import this. So file, so I'm going to call the get summary function. Okay, so we're going to get the params.id, right? So this is going to be export default async function, so we can use this await right here. And nice. All right, now that we have this information, we can start showing this to the UI, right? So first we have this div. We are going to give this some class names. So on the medium devices, we're going to have a padding of 8, and then we're going to say width of full. So it's going to take the whole space as it can, and then the space is going to be Y4. Basically, this is margin top and margin bottom. So some margin on the top, and then some margin on the bottom, right? And then inside of this div, we're going to have a h1. Okay, so this h1 is going to be the this file name. Okay, so I'm just going to show here file data.name like this. So let me see if we can see the name of the file. is supposed to show Roman Empire. Let me see if we can see that. And there we go. Now we can see here Roman Empire, and then below the H1 we're going to have a link. Before showing the link, we're going to style this H1 to look like this. All right, so first I'm going to add here some class names, and the class names are going to be dynamic. All right, so I'm going to say here text 3XL and then font bold. And the reason this is going to be dynamic is because we're going to use the font, we're going to use a Google font. So here I'm going to say import. So first I'm going to declare the font. So the font is named Simonetta. We already used this a couple of times. And then we're going to import the Simonetta class from Google. All right, so import, and then we can define the subsets, which is latent, and then the weight is going to be 400. This is the default weight. There we go. And then if we want to use, you just have to say Simonetta dot class name like this. Right, nice. Now we should have a good looking title. Let me just refresh. There we go. This is how this is supposed to look. Very, very nice. And then below the H1 we're going to have a link from next link. All right, and this is going to have a href. So the href is going to be home and then documents. Basically what this link is going to do is take us back to the documents. So I'm going to say here back to my documents. Of course we're going to style this a little bit. So I'm going to say here class name of flex, items center, text of small, text muted, foreground, hover, underline, and then margin bottom of 6. All right, and beside the text we're also going to add an icon. So here I'm going to say arrow left like this, and then for the class name of this icon, so class name, we're going to say margin right of 1, and then height of 4 and width of 4. So basically we are saying the size of the icon. All right, when you refresh you should have something like this. When we hover, it's going to show this underline, and when we click we should go back to the documents page where we can see all of the documents. Right, so now let's keep building the document. And now what we're going to do is this container right here, so this iframe where we can see a preview of the document. And to do this is going to be fairly easy. All right, so first we are going to create here a div below the link, and this div is going to have a class name of flex md flex row. So on the medium devices it's going to be flex row, so everything is going to be in line. And for the small devices we're going to show as a column. So so this is going to show up on top. So this is going to show up on top and this on the bottom. So this is the behavior that we want for the small devices. So flex column reverse. All right, so basically what this does, as you can see, this show up first and then they show up second. But when we are on column, what happens is that the last document shows up at what happens is that last container or the last item shows as first where we are in a column, right? So this is what we want. Reverse, and then gap of 8, and then width of full. So we are going to take the whole space. And then to show this this preview of the document is going to be fairly easy. We just have to call HTML element. Probably you don't know. There is iframe, okay, and this is just going to be something. It's like a mini page that you can put inside of your page. So for this, So for example, I can say here like source and then google.com, and then I can add here a title that is like Google. You don't have to do this, I'm just going to show you how this works. And then you can add here a class of width of full and height of 600 pixels, and then the border, and then rounded, large, and finally allow full screen and frame border as 0. And what's going to happen, so I tried here, Google is not going to work because it's not public, but for example, I'm going to put here the source of our file. So we're going to put here like file, so I'm going to put like file data dot URL, right? And then for the title, I'm going to say file data dot title, like this. And as you can see, this is going to show, let me type this correctly. I mean, it's file data dot name, not title. And what is going to happen is that it's going to show us a preview of our file. All right, so basically we are creating an iframe, which is, we can say that it's a page inside of our page, right? And then below this iframe, we are going to show this other section, which is the AI thing, all right, where we can see the summary and the chat. All right, so I'm just going to go below the iframe, and here I'm going to create a div, and this div is going to have the class name of with the full flex column and a gap of 4. All right, and we are going to create here a new component. So here inside of ID, we're going to create a new folder, and this folder is going to be /components. Make sure you put this folder inside of ID, and inside of here we're going to have index.tsx, and then inside of components we're going to have a new folder which is AI, and then inside of AI we're going to have index.tsx. all right, and here we're going to make the RFC just like this, and the name of the component is going to be summary, right? So now let's go back to the page, and we just need to import this summary right here. So we just have to import the component that we just created. So it's going to be summary. Make sure you import from this path, and this component is going to take some props. So here's going to be file data that we need to define it. So file data is going to be just a file, all right, and make sure you import the type of file, which is coming from DB schema. And of course here on the page we need to pass here the props. So file data is going to be just the file data that we fetched. All right, so hopefully we should start seeing here, this is the component. We cannot see anything because we haven't done anything to the component, but here on the class name, I'm going to say it's going to be pretty large, I'm not going to lie. So to add this background effect, what we need to do is say background gradient to bottom, and then we have to say the colors that we want for the gradient. So I'm going to say this is going to start from indigo 50 to purple 50. This is the color that we want for the gradient, and then I'm going to add some border of 2 of width, and then I'm going to say the color of the border, which is going to be indigo 400, and I'm going to say that this is going to be rounded, large, and it's going to have a padding of 6 and a padding top of 12. All right, the text that is going to be inside of this container is going to be large. It's also going to have a font semi-bold, and it's going to have a leading of 6. And here is beige gradient to bottom, to right, right? Make sure you spell that right. So bg gradient to right, and then here leading 6, and then flex grow, and then overflow auto. So basically here we are saying that the font is going to be bold. We are leading 6, that basically is the height of the text. So we can say, so we are saying that we are going to have something like a margin top for the text, and then flex or grow is to state to the element that it can grow as much as it can, and then the overflow auto, just in case we overflow the container. And then here we're going to say relative. You're going to understand later why. And we're also going to add some shadow. All right, and Tailwind allows us to create some custom shadows. So if you say shadow and then dash, you're going to see that we have some predefined shadows. But if you want to create a custom shadow, what you have to do is add these brackets right here, and then define the shadow yourself. So I'm going to say 0, 0, 20 pixels. So basically here we're saying how the shadow is going to be on the top, and then on the right, and then how spread this is going to be. And then we are going to define the color of the shadow. So it's going to be RGBA. So I'm going to choose this color right here. So 99, 102. You should not put any space here. So it should be sticky to each other. So 102, 251 and 41, I mean, and then comma 0.9. All right, so it's going to give us this purple color around the container. This is what we want. And then here we're going to add some other class names just to make this even more beautiful. So I'm going to say here before absolute, before inset 0, before rounded large, before pointer event none, and then before bg gradient to right, and then before from indigo 300 with 30% of opacity, and before via purple 300 with 50% of opacity, and before to indigo 300 with 30% of opacity, and then flex column. Okay, so you might be asking what this before is basically like an element that is not created with HTML, it's created with CSS. So we're creating, when you see before, you can think this as a HTML element or a div. So we're creating a div with absolute position, and then we are using inset to take the whole space. That's why we use this relative right here. So by being relative to this div, we're going to take the whole space, and then we're going to say that it's going to be rounded large, it's going to have events none, and then it's going to have a gradient background. So if we take this out, what you're going to see is that we have this background that we defined here earlier, but with this before we have an extra background that creates, so let me, it creates an extra background that creates like a very good visual effect. Okay, so we are creating this background, and then we are saying the gradient colors that are going to be on the gradient, and then we're just saying here flex column, right? So the container colors are done. All right, and then what we're going to do is this thing right here. So this thing where it says AI generated, and then this little sparkle right here. All right, so let me just create this real quick. So I'm going to have here a div, and this div is going to have a class name of absolute top 3. Again, we're using this absolute because we have this relative. So this absolute is being relative to this container. Okay, so I want to say like top 3 is going to show like something around here, and then right 3 is going to show up something around here, somewhere around here. All right, and then top 3, and then right of 3, and then flex items center space x1 bg indigo 100 slash 80, and then back drop blur small px of 2 py of 0.5 rounded of full. We're going to have a text indigo of 700, a text of extra small, and a font of semi-bold. It doesn't end there. We still have some classes, which is uppercase, tracking, wide, and shadow medium. All right, so I'm going to go over the classes that we create here. So this is for positioning, and then we are centering everything on the center. We are giving some space between the elements. We are giving some background, which is this color for the background. We are adding some blur for the background, some space inside of the container. We are rounding the corners fully, so we have this roundness right here. All right, and what else? Let me see. We are setting the color to indigo 700 for the text. We are setting the text as small, but we also setting this as semi-bold and uppercase, so everything is going to be uppercase. And tracking wide is basically the space between the letters, so we're going to say that this is going to be wide. And we also adding some shadow for the container. All right, and the only thing that we're going to add inside of this container or this badge is CPU, so the icon. So it's coming from Lucid React. The class name is going to be width of 4 and height of 4, and then the span is going to be AI generated, like this. It doesn't have to be uppercase because CSS is going to uppercase this for us. So let me refresh, and you should see here AI generated. All right, now below this div we are going to have another div. This is going to be very simple, I promise. We're not going to type a lot of class names. This is just going to be this sparkle right here, and as you can see, this sparkle has a little animation. If you can see it, is like pulsing. So we're going to add this thing in our application too. So here div, we're going to say class name self end, which is basically going to say that's going to be on the bottom right corner, and then opacity of 30. So we are downgrading the opacity. Make sure you spell that right. Opacity of 30. Animate of pulse, so it's going to have a pulse animation. And sparkless is the icon that we're going to use, and class name is going to be width of 6 and height of 6. And then we're going to say text purple of 400, like this, and we should have it. So now let me refresh and see how this is going to look. All right, we have this right here, which is very, very good. But as you can see, this is going to, it was supposed to be here on the bottom. It's going to be on the bottom once we have this summary created, and we're going to create it now. All right, but as you can see, what we have here is just some tabs. Okay, so we have a tabs container right here that is going to be also fairly easy to do. So here what we are doing, we are using ShadCN component. So here we are using a ShadCN component, which is this one. It's tabs. Okay, so and we're just going to install it. And to do this, we are going to go to the terminal. And to install this component, we're going to use npx ShadCN layers add add tabs, like this. It's basically going to install this component into our application, and we're going to say here yes to proceed. All right, so now that this is installed, we can start using it. So first you have to import the tabs. So tabs coming from component. All right, there we go. and here the only class name that I'm going to say is height of full, so it's going to take the whole height. And then here we're going to have the tabs list, and then here components, and then here I'm going to say tabs trigger. Alright, so basically we're going to have here two tabs. As you can see right here, we're going to have the summary and the chat tab. And here for the trigger, I'm going to import, it's coming from UI tabs. The trigger is going to be summary, and then we're going to have one other that is going to be chat. All right, so basically we have to add a value here. So this trigger is going to have the value of summary, and this other one is going to have the value of chat. Okay, and the default value, so as we load the page, the default value that is going to be set, so here just say default value is going to be the summary. All right, so the summary is the one that's going to be open as we load the page. And finally, we just have to create the tabs content. All right, so this content is for the summary, so summary like this, and for now I'm going to just say here summary. And then we're also going to have another tabs content that is going to say chat. Okay, and here I'm going to say chat too. And for the chat, I'm going to add here a class name of height of full. Nice. Okay, so now as you can see, we have two. We have now two tabs. So we have the summary and the chat tab, and as we click, the content changes. All right. For the summary, what we're going to do is going to be fairly simple. We're just going to have here a div. It's not going to have any class names. We're just going to say here file data dot summary like this. And for the chat, we're going to create a component for this. All right, so here on components, we are going to have this AI. Instead of AI, we're going to create here a new file that's going to be chat.tsx, and we're going to use the rfc command. So it's going to be chat, and we can insert the chat component right here. Nice. All right, so now you can see here the summary showing up very good. So it's just a quick summary about the document that we are writing, about the document that we uploaded, and then we have here the chat, which is not created yet. We're going to create now. Okay, so for the chat, it's going to be an easy task too. We're going to have basically it's just here a div with a class name of height of full, width of full. We're going to have a div of class name of height of full with nothing inside, and then below this div we're going to have another div with a class name of flex item center and gap of 1, and then we're going to have an input. I don't know if we have this created yet, so here I'm going to open the terminal and add a new component, which is going to be input. Nice, so we are done installing the input component. So here on the div, I'm going to insert this input component from components UI input. We're going to have here a placeholder of ask something to the AI about the document. All right, and finally we're going to have here a button to say ask like this. And with that, we have finished our application. It was a very fun project to do. We just created a AI powered application where we can upload documents, and the AI summarizes the documents for us. So if you like this tutorial, I would like you to subscribe and give a like to this video. And if you want to learn a little bit more and add some more features to your application, you can access the paid version of this tutorial. The link is on the description. See you next time.